Sword of omens, give me sight beyond sight.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, I'm Pavel Spichalski.
Oh, wrong one. Shit.
I tried to directly
Shut up, Pavel. Damn it. Intro blown.
Shame.
Shame.
It'd be pretty good to have him do the voiceover for the emus.
I should have just left it play. I should have just left it play, actually. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Now they're ganging up on him, dude.
Yep. They
Get it,
called
bitch.
him reinforcements.
Oh. Get out of there. Oh, it's almost over.
Kill it.
All right.
Just kill it.
Kill it. Just kill it. You know, our very first show ever we were fortunate to have Kevin, aka Quick Flash, with us, and riddled with fucking technical issues that night. And I'm super excited tonight to have him back. So welcome y'all to another episode of Between Two Props. Super excited to have Kevin back, giving us a little formal preview and conversation regarding Emuflight 030. We're getting close, y'all. We're getting excited, so we're stoked to fucking give you the scoop. With that, over to the goons and Kev. What up, what up, what up?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's going on?
What's up?
How's everybody tonight?
How's everybody doing?
Doing well. I just finished finals, so that's nice.
Congrats, man.
Wow, yeah, congrats, brother. I know that's a weight off your chest.
Yeah, happy to have that over with.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, yeah, we're super glad to have Kevin back on tonight, man. So we got some emu. What version are we on?
Well, currently the most recent production version is version 0.2, but we're just right around the corner for version 0.3.
Woohoo.
Currently. Yeah, we're real close. The last thing we're finishing is we just had to add a few things to the presets. We have to update our old presets. And since we've added new code, just implement some of that new stuff into the presets. Once that's done, we should be good for a release.
Nice.
So the flight code's ready, just waiting a little bit on the GUI so that, you know, that'll be ready for everyone. Because I know that tons of pilots love the presets and everything, so we're getting that ready.
Nice.
Should be a blast.
And it's an evolution, so it's exciting to see what they're doing with the presets and just, you know, adding clarity to them and just more variety coming in.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys have in store for the new. Is it .3.0?
Yeah, it's so.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, just 0.3.0.
Gotcha.
The release after this, we're hoping, will be version 1.0.0. Because currently, because currently everything we've been doing has kind of just been, you know, Emuflight just starting out, just us getting off our feet. But with that next release, the plan is to implement a lot of the missing beta flight features that we don't have. Just take a bunch of their code, implement it, and basically be on par with everything that beta flight has.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice.
That we'd want. Yeah.
feature wise, I think it's important to, primarily feature wise.
Yeah, we'll take some of the flight code, but that'll be highly tested before we take any of it. But features like, the DJI Fast S bus for, the HD stuff, we'll just merge that straight in. No reason to mess about with it because it works.
And kind of updating the drivers and things like that a little bit.
Yeah, getting the code to run a bit better. Some of those optimizations that they've done.
Because
we'll be picking up on all of that.
The reality is, I know, for some of it, to make targets, as an example, like being off, because obviously, as manufacturers today are making new FCs, they're all those targets are being built as unified under Betaflight and things of that nature. And for us, it's by what Kevin's work is going to be, to get us a little closer to that, will make that easier, so that will happen faster. I don't know that, and Kevin, you'd have to answer, like, I don't know where you stand with unified targets as a whole.
I do think that's a good idea. I've actually spoken to Dominic Clifton a little bit about that. And he did have some, like when they were originally implementing unified targets, he did have some slightly different ideas that may have been better, but with how far things have gone down the road, it's probably just easier to take what Betaflight's already done, just use some of what they've already done rather than coming up with something new.
Recreate the wheel, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
hey, just for a second, shout out to some folks in the chat. Tech Lust, Propaganda X, Phil Thrills,
Big oily
Killer
guy.
B, FPV, Big Oily Guy, Double A. What's up, fellas? West Side in the house.
Verb FPV, West Side.
What's up, fellas? Thanks
There's
for
this
coming out
fucking
tonight.
crazy old gravy leg guy in there. Oh wait, hi.
Oh, that guy. Oh, that guy.
Yeah, don't pay any attention to don't pay attention.
Waldo
to that
FPV, and I want to. There was a lot of people waiting. Thank you, Primitive in the house, Killer B. Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Phantom in the house.
Stoked to have you all here tonight. Thank you for joining us. So, big oily guy.
Derail.
Yeah, we just derailed. So let's. All right. So, Kev, I mean, maybe talk a little bit about like where, I guess everybody pretty much knows where Emuflight is, quote unquote, now, but let's start getting into it. Like, what are the big things that you're excited about with the 3.0 release?
So what is it? I made, most of you probably haven't seen it. It's probably a good thing. I made an hour-long video the other day where
put that on the Emu channel. I'm sorry. Anyways,
Chad will play the whole thing.
No, not I watched it though. I did watch it.
Yeah, it was a rather long,
and it's time stamped though, so
video.
You can jump.
Yeah, I put some timestamps there. I just kind of, I was, you get so many questions. A lot of them are repeated, and everything else. To the point that I just wanted to make a video, kind of go over what Emuflight is, a bit of the history of it, the features that are specific to Emuflight, and some of those different things, and went through, did pretty much all of that. Took about an hour. Probably could have condensed it if I tried harder, but just did it all in one take.
I'm gonna
make it easier.
I'll put the link in the chat for
yeah, vlogs and tutorial and things like that are just, they're hard to film.
Yeah, they're almost better not condensed too, because if you start doing that, you might leave out one critical thing, and then you have a million people asking you like, "Oh, what was that?" And it's like, "Why did I cut that out of the video?"
You're like,
yeah,
exactly.
So timestamping is the best because you can always go back and just be like, "Oh, okay, like
we gotta.
Oh, there it is." And
yeah, that's the best thing a YouTuber could do, and it's something like a tutorial.
Did you add
That
that?
way you can just re-reference.
Did you add that as a featured video to the Emuflight channel, Kev? Because I don't remember seeing it there.
No, I just stuck it on my channel.
Yeah, we should get a copy of it there somehow. I think it's relevant and should be on that channel as well.
It's my one most popular video.
Awesome.
700 views. So not a ton, but
okay.
Emuflight, the Emuflight YouTube channel and Kevin's channel are both in the description, y'all. And I just dropped the history of which will take you to Quick Flash's channel. We should get the Emuflight channel going as well. Let me get a link for that.
Get it up there. Get it up there. So with 0.3.0, what what is the biggest change that you've got?
Biggest change, well,
or feature add, or that you're really doing with 3.0?
There's honestly a few. If you're a tiny whoop pilot, then there's honestly a ton coming in.
There's a lot of good shit for whoops and
Sweet
micros.
Yeah, so I could actually, if I can share my screen, let me just plug in this flight controller. Let me remember how to share my screen. This will connect to my flight controller anyhow.
Off-axis FPV in the chat. Welcome.
Yeah. So
yeah, all of the angle code, I've rewritten that within Emuflight.
Nice.
So, okay, I can.
Why is that important?
Well, just a second. How do I share screen? Is that a share screen? There we go. So if you can see what I'm seeing, here we got the newer PID tuning tab. You can see kind of what I'm highlighting here. This angle code here, it looks like it's a lot more messy because we have the proportional, whereas in Betaflight you just have angle strength, and we have a derivative. So we've got an angle P term and an angle D term, and we have a low and high. And what makes that super great is I just essentially took what silverware had done, because the guys working on silverware, particularly not fast enough, and some of those other guys, they put a lot of effort into figuring out how to make the angle code better. And this is how they did things, was they had low error PIDs and high error PIDs. So what that means is, if you do crash into something, then your angle error is going to be very high. And when it's very high, those high PIDs are what's being used. And the huge advantage with splitting up the PIDs like this is if you crash, you know how a bunch of times with whoops you crash and then you suck up against the wall and you have to disarm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by making our angle P a lot lower at high error, it's not relatively as strong of a push as it usually would be. And so you're able to just break away from walls a lot easier, keep flying, and do all that kind of stuff. We also have an angle feed forward. We also have expo on the angle, whereas with Betaflight it's just linear. If you have your maximum pitch to 90 degrees, moving your stick, it's just linear, moving you to that 90-degree pitch angle. Whereas an Emuflight can add some expo to it, make it a bit more curved.
So that could effectively take away the boatiness of a whoop, like as you're going left to right. Is that correct? Do you think
the expo can help out with that a bit. And I've actually heard of some people flying whoops in angle mode where they'll put expo on the transmitter because they just want to make the center less jerky in angle, and that removes the need to do that. Adding that expo.
Because I find that I feel jerky, like my flight feels a lot jerkier in angle mode on a whoop, and so that would basically help eliminate that.
Yeah, that can help with some of that. It changes the feel as well, so that's something to think about. But that's just user preference. But these, and by the way, the default angle PIDs, they came from Project Mockingbird or Patrick Clark. He's been really great as a tester, and he helped us come up with these numbers. And so, we just stuck with those for defaults. And, when I fly angle mode, I never change that. Just keep them default. They fly great.
That's awesome. Now, is this for all kind of micros, like your 2.5, 3 inch 2 whoop size, or is this?
Yeah, I mean, anything that you fly angle mode in should handle angle mode a bit better. An example is actually at my work. For those of you who don't know, I work as a drone pilot for my university. It's a pretty cool place. I work for Aggie Air. But while I was there, we recently hired on a new pilot, and he just started getting into drone racing. So I helped him build a drone. He started off just flying Betaflight, messing with it. And he's like, okay, I've been flying this for a while. I want to try Emuflight. And one of the first things he noticed was that he preferred the way the angle mode felt, because he's still getting used to acro. So he's not fully flying acro, but he much preferred the way that the Emuflight angle mode felt just as a beginner. going from beta flight to Emuflight.
Well, I could imagine if you're smoothing that experience out, where when you crash, it's not so erratic, or like you said, kind of pins you up against something.
No.
Yeah.
Quick question, Kev. Are those and I don't want to derail this, but the expert mode switch, are those hidden via expert mode, or are those always enabled as a sense? Always enabled as a sense.
As far as I know, they're always. I'm not sure if we finished getting the expert mode exactly how we want it yet, so I don't.
Okay.
It should still be there. It's for most people, you won't ever have to touch it because it just works out of the box from what I've seen. But yeah, so people that race whoops, you can just expect, you hit a gate and you're not just gonna suck up against the gate or get knocked off a lot worse. It really does help out.
So it's just gonna help you get out of trouble in a crash, up against a wall, up against a gate, things of that nature.
Yeah, it helps out with that. And then, if you don't, you want a bit more aggressive kind of feeling, you've got that angle feed forward that you can stick on there.
And if you want to soften center stick, you've got angle expo.
Yep.
See, I feel like
I've been told that feed forward is bad.
Well, if you notice that it's not in the PID controller anymore.
Yeah, you see that right there. We just have PID, and then we only have feed forward on angle.
Okay. So it got demoted, is what you're saying.
It effectively got demoted. Yes, is a good way to put
it. we kept it for angle because angle mode is all the math and everything behind angle mode is entirely different than the regular PID stuff. Because when you fly in angle mode, it actually uses your normal PIDs to fly. The angle strength and stuff is just how much correction it tells your PIDs to make.
And just to clarify again, so you're is this a percent? So this is 35% of in a high angle. So if I'm up against a wall, I'm only getting 35% of my P gain now.
Well, I can raise this. I think it's like 250 is the max you can set these to. 200. So that's the max you could have, but it's it's compared to the default 100.
But I'm just clarifying. As you had it set up right that second, that in a high error situation, the way it was set, you would be at 35% of your P gain at that point. Is that a correct way to put it?
Both of these aren't really seen as a percentage.
Okay.
The P here is essentially what used to be the angle strength.
Okay.
So it's like if you're starting to suck up against a wall, you're going to have an angle strength of like, say, 35, whereas normally you'd have an angle strength of 100.
Right.
And then that derivative kind of mellows it out and pushes back against some of those really abrupt movements. And you don't really need as much D when you get that high error, especially because most of the time you're seeing that high D is when you're crashing. And so high D during your crash would just cause a lot more noise.
So you've effectively created a Whoop tuner's wet dream, because this is incorporating silverware elements that you can now adjust.
Yeah.
Effectively.
And yeah, you can adjust them in silverware, but it requires recompiling the software.
Exactly. It's not easy.
You have to go into the source code. So it's now right there. Something else as well is we went and changed I went and changed the brushed code a little bit. Essentially, when you're flying around in your mixer, so you have your PIDs come up with how much it wants to push your quad, and then it sends that information into the mixer, which then does some math and figures out how much it needs to spin up each motor. Now, before the mixer's finished, it does some math and says, are the motors saturated? Are the motors going to 100%? And then it'll rescale the motor outputs so that you don't have a motor going past 100%. After it rescales it, you sometimes still end up with a motor below 100%, a motor below 0 and a motor above 100. When it sees that your motor output is saturated, you can't spin any motor past 100 or below 0. So when you get that full saturation where the difference is greater than, that full 100%, then your motors are saturated and it essentially just clips off the motor outputs and limits a lot of things. Now, for the brushed quadcopters, I have changed the code so that it doesn't do that. In a sense, if it wants, your commanded difference, if normally it would just be one motor's at 100, one motor's at 0. Now it kind of just ignores that and lets your motors stay at higher percentages than they should be at. And for brushed quads that have a lot less power, you don't notice that it's doing that. And you just end up getting more power when you're flying a brushed quad. And it kind of unlocks the power. And that's what Silverware did as well in their code to make brushed have more power when you're flying it. Because when you're flying, especially when you get near 100% throttle, if you look at a log, you'll see the motors trembling a little bit. And it only let one motor ever be at 100, usually when it's trembling, and it'll kind of shift the other motors down a little bit. But with this code, it kind of ignores the shifting down and just keeps them all up a bit higher. And so for brushed quads and things like that, they're just able to unlock more power output. But if you were to put it on a brushless with the extra power that brushless has, you would notice that the mixer wasn't accounting for that, and your quad would fly off a bit and it wouldn't quite fly right. But for brushed quads, it works really well. And that's something that Patrick has been really excited about. Project Mockingbird, he's been really excited about that.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
So anyone that is flying brushed quads, if you fly Emuflight or Silverware, you'll get more power than Betaflight has because of how the code's written.
Let them know.
That's wicked.
Emuflight, what?
It's important, because as we added, as Kevin and the team's added things, there's things also being removed from the equation. So like I said, feed forward being one of them.
Feed forward, yep. What is it, Acro Trainer or whatever? We got rid of that because.
What the hell was that anyway? Has anybody ever used that?
Yeah, what is Acro Trainer?
I tried when I was learning. It was.
I thought that
I
was
tried,
angle
and it was
mode
very
or
weird.
sim.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, what is this tilt effect on Horizon?
I'd have
I'm
to.
not familiar with that term. It's very specific.
I'd have to look at it again. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've looked at that. But you can also notice that our Horizon mode doesn't have an expert switch like the Betaflight one does if you really look at that. If I remember correctly, it has to do with, so Horizon is essentially you take angle and you mix it into acro. And it's either tilt effect or transition. I can't remember which one, but one of them is how aggressively it goes from angle mode into acro. And I think transition is at what angle you finally made the full transition into Horizon or something like that. I can't remember. It's been a while since I looked at it. I honestly just took the code that Not Fast Enough had written, because he actually did write some Betaflight code way back in the day. I just took his code for the Horizon and I just stuck that into Emuflight because the way he did it worked better, and it follows, kind of the same rules that the same rules that the Betaflight Horizon did, but just the math he did on it was a bit better. But the way we've set up Horizon, I know that Patrick, he's been playing with it quite a bit, where he flies this Not Fast Enough racer mode, where it's only angle on roll. So pitch is acro, roll is angle. And he can do these roll flips. Yeah, he'll do like these roll flips in Horizon where he does a flip and he stops upside down. And because he's gone past whatever angle he's set, he's now in full acro and he's just upside down and he can just fly around, but he does have that roll that brings him back to center. He just kind of has to set the pitch angle, keeps going, and rolls just locked in. So don't remember exactly what these do. Maybe this note will tell me. So yeah, the weakest. Yeah, so this is the auto leveling effect. The higher the number, the weaker the auto leveling effect. And then transitions the strength from angle to acro. So I haven't really played with this.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't use those functions normally, but
I've not really used it. I know that Patrick Clark's been using it and stuff. I kind of want to give it a go just because of the good feedback I've been hearing about it. But
what's the good feedback you've been hearing about it?
Well, just that he's been, what he likes to kind of do is He says that it's a lot easier to do like reverse orbits around something and just being able to do rolls, because he can very easily just do a roll.
Very cool.
You know, he just puts it in NFE mode, kind of can pull back, do those kind of inverted, because you got some of that self-leveling effect, but then you can still do a roll with it.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of cheat, I guess, a little bit.
Got you. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. Are there any other kind of features that you're pulling in that are a big part of this, the update?
Yeah, so these, I'm going to save the best one for last, but this was just some whoop stuff. Something in here to take a look at is this with the dynamic filter. We've added some code from iNav.
Nice.
Pavel Spikowski. I know I've butchered that name, but the iNav developer, you've probably seen him on YouTube once or twice. He came in here, updated the dynamic filter to now be the iNav matrix filter, which is just an improved version of the dynamic filter. And I've actually seen some logs done in Betaflight, because it's also being tested in Betaflight, but I've seen some logs done where they've tested RPM filter and the dynamic notch against just the matrix filter. And for essentially the same latency, the dynamic filter was filtering just a little bit better. So
nice.
It's a really nice filter. It even works on HelioFlight controllers. I know not all the Helio pilots are a fan of it, but quite a few are. So that's something that you can use.
It's definitely a tool. It's definitely a tool in the fucking toolbox, man. Now, is it with the matrix? Can you adjust that? Is it like a multi-peak filter, or what exactly? What is the matrix part of it?
So the matrix part is, so with the dynamic notch filter is it looks at your gyro data and it runs what's called an FFT, or a fast Fourier transform. And it takes your gyro data and turns it into frequencies. After it turns it into frequencies, it says, where do I have the most, noise at a certain frequency? And if it's, say, at 200 hertz, it knows, okay, I have a lot of noise at 200 hertz. Let's put a notch filter on 200 hertz to get rid of that noise. That's how the dynamic notch works. The matrix says, let's look at roll, pitch, and yaw, see where the most noise is on roll, pitch, and yaw. And then I'll stick a notch filter on roll, pitch, and yaw for each peak. So I find a peak on roll, but I stick a notch on pitch and yaw as well.
It's three per axis, isn't it?
So 3 per axis. Each one relates to a different peak noise on a certain axis. And what's really great about that is when you're flying, you do have, if you have noise on roll, that noise will show up on pitch, and that'll also show up on yaw. And so if you clean it from roll, clean it up from pitch and yaw at the same time, whereas the dynamic notch would just take the peak noise from each one. But then, there are, just a few extra settings you can mess with. Just in the CLI, you can change the dynamic notch Q. Q is how wide the filter is. The smaller the number, the more wide
fatter it is.
The notch is, the higher the thinner it is. So the thinner, the less latency it is. And then there's the minimum frequency that it'll filter down to. These values here are just the defaults. They work pretty dang well.
So there's definitely situations, and I actually have a situation where I'm kind of going between that and potentially a static, but in a situation where you have frame resonances and other factors that are slightly varying, this is clutch. This is a very clutch filter.
Yeah, and I've been starting to use it a bit, and I can just take all of my low pass filters, bring them up a bunch more, filter things differently. I've even done some no D-term filter tunes. I've done some other things just playing around with it. And it's definitely a really good thing there. Something though, that's probably one of the most exciting things for a lot of users that they're going to be playing with is this rate dynamics code. Now, some of you may have heard of this in the past referred to as stick PIDs. 'Cause that's the original name that we came up with. We changed the name just because calling it stick PIDs was starting to confuse some people. And if you want to view this, you can view this under the names we have, or you can essentially view this as a P, I, and D. So that's essentially how they're working. But rate dynamics is kind of a rather special piece of code, because instead of dealing with any flight characteristics, this solely deals with stick feel. So, in a software like Betaflight, to do stick feel, it's mainly just, changing your rates, finding the rates that you like, getting them set up, and then maybe applying more feed forward or less feed forward, kind of for taste. And that's how you'd get stick feel. Well, something that I've noticed is, quite a lot of like Emuflight pilots or other pilots, they're not fans of feed forward. And, some of the guys in the black box logging groups or whatever are like, oh, you've got so much latency between when you move your stick and by the time the gyro reaches that rate of travel that you need to add feed forward. And they're like, well, I don't like the way feed forward feels. And their response is, well, you just don't like your rates then. And I know some pilots where they get into that situation and then they add feed forward. They get their set point to track gyro really well. So their gyro is following the set point near perfect. They're like, okay, I don't like the way this feels, so I'll spend some time tuning my rates and changing my rates. But by the end of the day, they just don't like the way it feels, even after they've changed their rates and played with feed forward. And this code, really just aims to fix all of that. And we're calling it rate dynamics because it's really a dynamic way of messing with your rates. So you set your static rates up like this,
Yes.
but then in flight, your rates are able to change, kind of. And so essentially what the code does is it's able to manipulate what your quadcopter thinks the position of your sticks is at. So maybe you've just banged your stick to the very end, of your throw, but it thinks you haven't quite reached it yet. Or it thinks you've gone actually past your full stick throw. That's going to change your stick feel a bit. That's not going to change your tune or change the way it flies at all, but your stick feel is going to be different. And the way we do it is these three values, and they're quite simple. We have center values and we have end values. So center is near stick center and end is near the end of your stick. And so as you move your stick, it'll slide between these two settings. And sensitivity, what this code literally does is it looks at how far you've moved your stick and it multiplies it by this percent. So if you have it set to 100, it does nothing. The defaults don't do anything. But if you set it to 120, whenever your stick is near the center, it will think that your stick is actually pushed 20% farther than you've actually pushed your stick.
Faster, yeah.
And that there would just change your rates if all we had was sensitivity. That would just boost or change your rates a little bit.
So it's gonna make that will make center stick more sensitive. We'll make it more touchy if you want.
Yeah, a bit more touchy, a bit snappier. And then we have this thing called correction, and it literally acts like an I term if you're good with PIDs, or if not, you can think of it as a correction because your sensitivity is set to 120%. So your stick's moved 20% farther than it's actually moved. But the correction comes in and it builds up over time and it fixes that extra 20%. So you move your stick a little bit and it's actually like it moved 20% farther, but then correction comes in and it brings it back to where it actually is. And the way that it does it is actually every time your RX signal gets updated, it just gets 10% closer if you set it to 10, or if you set it to 50, it gets 50% closer to
reality,
where you're actually at. Yeah. And so you can kind of, you can set sensitivity to say 80, and then it thinks you've moved your stick 80% less than you actually have. And then it corrects and brings it back to reality. And then the last thing we've got is weight, or it essentially acts like a D-term. it just prevents change in your stick movement. So if you like bang your stick and you have this set to 50, it takes your movement. It says, oh, you moved, 10, what do they have? 10 PWM, your PWM is 10 higher, but you've set it to 50. So we'll only let it go 5 higher because we're preventing half of that change. Then the next time it loops through, And
that can be done at center stick and at the end of the stick.
Yeah, so you can change. Yeah, so you can say, like, currently what I'm actually flying is, I think my center's 75, my weight's 85 there. It's, I think, like 25 here. Like, I'm flying something around this right now.
And this is on what craft?
This is on it's the Diatone Cube 2.5 inch.
Okay.
So it's a micro quad. Yeah, it's a micro. I've set it up this way because, as you can see, I've got a bunch of weight near the center, but near the end, I don't have nearly as much near the center. It shrinks it. My sensitivity is up on the end, so I can still do these quick, nice feeling flips. And when I stop my stick in the center, my quad just doesn't jerk to a stop. It kind of eases into the stop a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what I need.
And
game changer.
Think about it for the Cinewhoops though. Like when you're Cinewhooping and you're trying to be smooth, like you want it to, like, weight can be nice, because I think the way Kevin put it to me, it's like it makes it feel makes your stick feel heavy in the center, basically.
That's why we've called it weight.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just like sick. So if you lower your sensitivity and maybe up your weight towards center, you can smooth out like your Cinewhoop, your cinematic type stuff a lot more.
Well, I think I find most people, that is where, like, especially me, like, that's where I have the most trouble, is in center, coming back to center off of a trick. And just being sloppy because you're just gone from an extreme movement in one direction and you're trying to pull it back. And I generally run tight springs to kind of give myself a bit of that effect, some like physical feedback in the stick.
Yeah.
But I prefer to run a looser stick in, because everything else seems to feel better and dialing in something seems a little bit easier. So, I mean, that sounds freaking awesome.
Yeah, so
I'm excited to see that.
I really want to see, pilots kind of pushing this, because I know from just my experience and what I've seen online that most Emuflight pilots, they'll just come in here, and for the most part, they just pick the Pierre tune, and then they just go fly. They pick the Pierre tune, and then they set up their rates, however they've set them up. They just set up their rates. Okay, I'm good. Now I'm going to go fly. That's essentially how they do things.
Another killer thing about this, though, is like, so traditionally, like when you're racing, like a lot of guys would run low rates because, when you have a lot of adrenaline and whatever in your race environment, you're going to be a little shakier. So to smooth that out, a lot of people would traditionally lower the weights. If you're trying to fly cinematic, you might lower your rates to smooth that out. But what's interesting about this is that you could ultimately leave yourself at a higher rate profile, but then make it feel like you're running a really low rate profile around center stick and control that transition in between those two states. So if you need to be able to flip and roll aggressively, you got it. But if you want to if you're jittery, you want to add a little weight to your mix in the center, you can chill yourself out effectively. In those.
Well, I think that'll help people who prefer a more linear feel in the stick. Like that'll help you get that. So you can drop your RC rate low so that mid curve isn't so elbowy. You know what I mean? Like, you can still have that direct feel, but not get the reaction in the center, which is, like I said, game changer.
Wombat in the house.
Yeah, I mean, when I was first coming up with this idea, I was like throwing it out to my testers, like, how would you feel if I got rid of feed forward? And a lot of the testers were just freestyle pilots, a lot of the Emuflight testers, and they're like, yeah, whatever, I don't use it, whatever. And then we've got a handful of quite really good, talented racers, and they're like, hey, if you've got something that would replace kind of the same feel as feed forward, then it would be okay. But I need something that it can still give kind of that feel. And I proposed this to them, let them try it. And they're like, yeah, without using feed forward or Emu Boost or any of these other things, I can get exactly the stick feel that I want. I just have to mess with this. So it was like, okay. And that's the moment we decided we were going to get rid of feed forward. As you know, from a pilot perspective, all that feed forward really does is change your stick feel. You know, as you're flying, it doesn't make you respond to prop wash better or handle wobbles or anything else. It just helps the stick feel.
Well, that's the thing. Back in the day, you know, the Helio guys were always like, you tune your PIDs to for air, right? For performance. You tune your PIDs so that the quad behaves correctly, and then you change your rates for feel. And because people would be like, oh, well, you know, change this for your, you know, when they're talking about changing their stick feel, they were changing their PIDs, which was actually not the way to do it, you know. And
but that was the way.
But that was the way for a long time. Yeah. And then, you know, like I said, running, you know, for me, like I've always ran on all my quads. I run 3 rate profiles. I have a high one for freestyle. I have a medium one, and then I have a low one that I always use for racing. But now I feel like, and usually what would happen is when I would show up at a place and start getting used to a track, as I would run medium, and I would get used to it and have that rate I needed in case I got myself in trouble while I was learning the track. But then once I got comfortable and found my lines, I would lower down and fly lower. But with this, I could keep that oh shit rate profile active, but make it feel like I'm in that lower mode around center.
Well,
so
but
that's,
to make a bit of a point, I think your PIDs, at least to my knowledge, definitely affect the feel of your stick. That ratio of P to D is something that definitely affects the feel.
Yeah.
And I think that's more what people were trying to explain, you know, back in the day about, you know, adjusting the PIDs to kind of change the feel and feeling it out the tune and whatever. But what I say that to say is this kind of seems like it takes that space, that kind of fine tuning of your rates to get them exactly the way you want them.
Yeah,
which is super sick.
Yeah, it's really cool how it can do that. And then, like I'm saying, the way that I run it, it just smooths out as I bang the stick back to center. You know, because I just do a quick flip. You know, my quad's twirling about 1,000 degrees a second, and then I just stop it. And it doesn't just stop, it eases into that, which is something that, you know, I could do by being more nimble with the stick and not bringing it quite all the way back to center, or I could just run this weight parameter a lot higher and it'll just force it to slow down slower.
Well, a good example is with larger craft. Okay, ultimately you're pretty much getting to a point where you have so much mass moving around that it's challenging in some cases to get a big quad to actually track your rates, like actually hit that speed that you want. And what's really interesting with this is that, you know, for me anyways, like I've found that I've had to tone them down, just my rates down a little bit, because some of the craft just don't track as well. I see bounce back because the quad's trying to track what I want to do rate wise in certain situations, but it's just not keeping up, or it's effectively overshooting because the mass of the quad itself is just causing that. You know what I mean? And what this would allow is to make it almost feel snappier, where I want it lower in mid stick in certain situations, and lower my rate profile as well. Which it's I don't know, just thinking about it, like.
Well, I think there's a lot of cool applications that would be, you know, just incredible for, you know, cinematic flying, for sure. Racing, freestyle, just having the ability to adjust those things and better fine tune rates, which I feel like is something that I've always wanted.
And something that I've been hearing is, you know, from our racer guys, they say that it feels better to them than feed forward does. And I think that part of that is that since feed forward is based on acceleration of your stick, that it's very easy to be a bit inconsistent with your stick acceleration. Mm-hmm. And then that would kind of vary the feel of your movement. But something like this, that doesn't really care about the acceleration so much, rather just, you know, these things that are going on, it can feel a bit more consistent doing your maneuvers.
Right, because it's not contingent upon you as much.
I feel like another thing that this is going to kind of eliminate is like some pilots will have, depending on if they fly thumbs or like just depending on how you hold the sticks and like if you have anything that's kind of making you have a blind spot in your stick movement, like you can't go full stick like all the way one way, like you can set up weight on that so that way it knows that it'll kind of give you
Push
a
you
little bit more
through
weight.
that,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I mean, that's
Especially
like
if
a out there case, but I know that
No.
like when
I definitely know what
started,
you're talking about.
yeah,
Where it's and also even in some kind of trick maneuvers, like your fingers, especially if you're a pincher. I mean, that's all I can speak to, but
mhm.
like your fingers will bind up a little bit or something, and you'll just have a weird jerk in something where maybe you could at least correct it or help correct it with something like this.
Well, your point
Yeah.
about running, you know, higher tension springs and stuff, like already, like, because I do the same thing, and I have noticed that, like, you know, with certain rate setups, I have to add a lot of expo to counteract what's going on around center and the snapback and all that. And I noticed that with this, just playing around on my fucking Mobula 6 with this thing, it's just been so much fun. Like, I've been able to dial it in and get feel and get tracking and trying to do power loops in the fucking house and crazy shit. And it's just like,
Hell yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and another kind of cool side effect that I've been able to see is for anyone that's done a lot of black box logging, you've probably seen like your RC command, how it's always jumpy. You know, like
Oh,
you
so
look
it
at your
smooths
set,
out
you look at your set point, it's always jumping about. Yeah, and this kind of smooths that out. And if you have a set point that's jumpy, it'll kind of make your PIDs jump around a bit as they try to correct for everything. But this kind of smooths that out. So actually running some of this can kind of, you know, just hovering there, you don't really notice a difference. When you start moving the stick more, it's just a tad little bit smoother because you've got a smoother set point coming into everything because you have that correction in weight physically smoothing out all of the movements that you're doing. And so, you know, I've actually tested it where I've actually just came in here and I've just turned my filtering off on the sticks. And, you know, as long as you've got enough of it went away, but as long as you've got enough of the rate dynamics on there, you don't really need any of that RC smoothing, any of that filtering on your RC command, as this will do it all for you. And
is it at a lower latency, or is it identical or too minimal to matter?
I mean, the way you look at this stuff, I wouldn't say looking at rate dynamics as latency really makes a ton of sense, because your sensitivity is just able to boost your output or shrink it.
Gotcha.
So
it's not like adding a layer of filtering or processing, really.
Yeah, it's a bit different, but if you just do it all with the rate dynamics, you can pick and choose where you get that extra latency, because weight is always going to feel a little bit like latency because it fights the change in stick.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess this allows you to pick and choose where that latency is a little bit better while still keeping a really smooth set point. Because you can say near the center, I'm a bit of a racer. I need it to be a bit more aggressive off the center stick because, you know, I need to be able to go back and forth, left and right through the pylons, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And near the end of the stick, I want it to actually smooth out a bit more so I don't overcorrect on a turn or anything. And you could go in there, set it up that way, get it to work. And you can kind of fine tune your stick feel. And having the center values and end values is really neat because you can change how the stick feels as it moves through the whole range of the stick.
So Brian Kirby's asking, how does it affect expo? Have you saw any correlation there?
So, I mean, if you look here, this whole little rate display that kind of shows your rates, these are essentially what your rate dynamics is trying to reach. Because like I said before, your sensitivity just boosts how far it thinks your stick has moved, or it shrinks how far it thinks your stick has moved. The correction corrects for that, and the weight just fights all change to your stick position.
Mm-hmm.
So your rates are still identical. It's just how it reaches your rates is a little bit changed. So it might take it a little bit longer to reach your rates. It might shoot past your rates a little and then dive down back to them.
Basically, how quickly or slowly it's moving along the rate curve.
Yeah.
And it has two areas. Where does it meet in the exact middle of the curve, or where does end and center stick rate dynamics kind of meet in the middle, I guess is the way. Is there
so the math for how they combine is it slides. So it slides from center to end. So if you're at half stick, you've moved your stick halfway, then it's half center, half end. So each have an equal portion.
Okay.
So if you move the stick 10%, it's going to be 90% center, 10% end. If you've moved it all the way to the end, it's 100% end. You move the stick 90% end, 10% center.
I think we need to make a graphic that shows the movement. I think it'd be dope.
Yeah, and like that math is, the same way that the high angle error and low angle error for whoops works.
Mm-hmm.
Same way, it's just it slides over to that other value as, the dynamics of it change.
Basically,
so as you move,
it's like a crossfade between the two states almost.
Yeah, so you've got the low and high, and they merge together. It's a nice, easy flow. If it was just, once you surpass this much, it changes, you'd probably feel that as soon as you stick past that, and it would be jarring. But the way that it does, it's a nice, smooth transition between the two.
Dope. That's good. That's
very nice.
And so, it makes it easy to run sensitivity below 100 for the center and say above it for the end. But the most you can set your weight to is 95, because going above that doesn't make sense. Because if you had 100, you wouldn't be able to move your stick. So the most you can do is let 5% change through, because this will block 95% of it. So
jeez.
If you run it like this, I've done this before just to test it, and it actually, once when I was out flying, I totally messed up, and I meant to set my center to 95, but I had the end set to 95. And so near the center, it was kind of agile. And then as I banged the stick, it just didn't increase its speed hardly at all. It took it a while to finally decide to get
right.
But the center was nice and quick. So, don't be worried. Some suggestion I have for people wanting to try this is not to be worried about these values.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people get worried about PIDs, if I change this, is my quad going to fly this? Is it going to fly worse? Is this going to give me too much noise? Is this going to give me bounce back? I don't know how to tune. I don't want to spend hours doing this. But this is all stick feel. Just change the values in your on-screen display, fly for 30 seconds, decide if you like it or not, tweak it some more, play with different values. It's just
this is definitely a tweaker's dream for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing as rates. You just got to fly these rates to get used to them.
Well, I mean,
the only thing that the one thing that I do miss is now when I hop on a simulator, it doesn't quite feel.
It does. That's
right.
what I was saying. I was like, we got to talk to Kevin at Liftoff. I'm like, dude, you got to put this in there. This is amazing. You got to try it. What does it say? Fucking. The other good example though is say I don't know, say the new pilots are getting into the hobby, and they buy a bind and fly, and if that bind and fly has, a decent tune or preset tune that's already on it and whatever, it's you don't have to worry about if you want it to be snappy or you want it to be more chill, you could just come in and play with your rate dynamics and not worry about that tune at all, and change how it feels, which is interesting. That's
cool.
Yeah, but. Don't expect this to fix your tune. So if you've got prop wash, this isn't going to get rid of prop wash. You've got bounce back or anything. This can somewhat help with bounce back, as it can smooth your sticks.
Well, the center stick analogy, especially with high tension springs, is actually that's clutch, because high tension is going to make it more. I have a bad habit of I pretty much just let go of the stick, and it's effectively going doing, and I can see that, you know what I mean? And this is a good way to help with that.
Yeah. So
Exactly. I think that's super cool.
I really think, that it's a big game changer. Like, I don't know, as I was getting into it and coding it, I was starting to wonder why other softwares hadn't come up with, anything that can change your rates somewhat dynamically or change the feel of your rates as you move your stick. And I really don't know why no one else has come up with something like this, or if they have, I just haven't known about it. But it's, I think it's a really cool and new way of thinking about your rates rather than just a static curve.
I mean, I think that's what it is. There's a lot of adjustment. You have 3 different ways that you can adjust your rates. Most people just probably thought that was it. That's as far as you needed to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly,
man,
I think
because I think it's genius.
I think the important stress is like, this does not affect your tune. If you have rates you like, you can use your rates that you like. If you spent time tuning your quad out and it flies dope and you have no prop wash, and then but you still you want it to feel a certain way, especially for me, like I said, for anybody who shoots like cinema type stuff, those situations change all the time. You might have more or less space in a certain situation, whatever. You could just come in and tweak your rate dynamics really quickly and slow down response for a tighter area, or open it up, or whatever you want to do to be adaptable without having to worry about anything else.
And yeah, it just reminds me that this code is set up with your rates. So if you change your rate profile, well, let me do it right now, but if you change your rate profile, it will change your rate dynamics as well. So you can have a more aggressive feeling rate dynamics or a smoother feeling one, all while having the same rates.
They even put that on a switch.
Yeah.
You can flip it. You can put it on a switch. You just flip a switch, and mid-flight,
the same rates, you can just flip through the dynamic.
That's why,
which is fucking sick.
I think that's a great way to kind of tune it and figure out how you like it. Is try different settings, put it on a switch, and you can feel in air how it feels different.
Kevin and I were talking about potentially losing or hiding adjustments because it's probably one of the least used tabs for most people. But I was like, I don't care. The most important one, I only need one, and that's rate profile. It is. That's all I do is I set that to whatever aux. I put the bar all the way across, and I do rate profile selection, and that's it. And
if we locked it to just that, we'd probably be good.
Honestly, we should just hide the rest under expert mode or something.
I think in the Patrick Clark build a lot, I do notice he uses it for mixing. I can't remember, like camera mix or something mix.
Yeah, the FPV.
I know there are other uses.
Where is it? There's
it's in there.
Here somewhere. Right there.
FPV angle mix, and that's for the cinematic yaw.
Yeah.
Right.
If you want to use cinematic, so those of you that don't know, FPV angle mix, essentially, if you set your FPV angle mix to 30 degrees, if you're pitched forward at 30 degrees and you give it a yaw, it will cross coordinate that yaw so that the horizon stays level. In Emuflight, we've also got some code right here. I set this 60, I set it up cinematic yaw, and as I pitch forward, it will add more and more correction until I reach this angle. And then it will quit applying the correction. It'll be like I'm stuck at 60 degrees. But, if I set it to 60, as I pitch forward, as soon as I hit 60 degrees, I'm still, whenever I yaw, I'm looking at the horizon.
Yeah, it's going to keep your horizon level.
And I pull back to, 10 degrees. I do a yaw. It's still looking at the horizon. It does it the whole way. So it changes your yaw.
Yeah, so good for, good for cinema,
Yeah, I've seen some guys with whoops where they set up the not fast enough mode where it's just angle on roll, and they just pitch forward, and then they just fly with yaw, having cinematic yaw turned on.
Yeah,
and they just give it yaw, and it corrects with the roll. They're just able to go through those turns. It banks them into the turns.
Yeah, you just got to know whatever angle you're setting, and then punch that in, click that on, turn on the yaw, and fucking send it with the fat. Yeah.
That's sick too,
It's
man.
so-
pretty dope.
That's sick.
That would be
Pretty
so
cool.
good for production stuff too, where it's like one less thing that you have
Oh
to
yeah.
edit.
Well, yeah.
You don't have
Yeah,
to
especially-
edit a level horizon anymore because that's. So
I mean, I
critical.
could use it on the big, like like you and me, Grave.
Yeah, I
Like,
was gonna say,
use it
man.
on a big rig when you want to do cinema stuff, and you're tracking a target, man. You could
Especially if you're carrying a heavier payload.
carrying a,
Yep.
What's
big
that
camera.
dude? The thick frame that carries that black magic.
Yep.
Or,
the
you
one
know,
that
any-
Andy Shen did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
And-
flying a 10-inch bandolera with a A7 III and a 50 prime on it, so it's
Shit. Yeah, man.
And
It's-
you know,
it would help.
That's so sick.
thinking about it, those might be some times where it's perfect to run the NFE racer mode as well as flying Horizon. You know, from what
Yeah.
I've been hearing, because very easily you can keep your roll locked in so that you're not
Right.
bobbling. You know, your camera's not bobbling to the left and right the whole time,
Exactly.
and you can really keep the horizon just.
And you just
locked
set your
in.
pitch, and then you get your speed set. You don't have to worry about roll, and then you're just yawing around.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
give it a shot.
There's definitely
Because
Soon
actually,
enough.
some pretty big cinema
Mm-hmm.
implement. I can't even speak. Implications
Implications.
here. Like this, fucking West Side. I hope you're paying attention, bro, because this is the shit right here.
Yep.
it's gonna be cool because the rate dynamics code. Actually, I actually came up with this after talking to Bob Ruge, because he wanted a cinematic mode where when you do a quick flip, the stop isn't abrupt. It kind of
Yeah.
has a bit of the real steady,
Lags.
the real steady kind of feel where they do the flips and it's a nice stop. It's not a jerky. You know, of course, there's still gonna always be a place for those jerky freestyle edits where it's just they do
Absolutely.
the quick snap turns and everything, and those are great. But if you don't want that, if you want kind of a real steady look, you know, I came up with an earlier version of this that I was never quite happy with, and then I rethought the whole thing and came up with rate dynamics where you could get that cinematic feel if you want, or a really aggressive
Really
feel,
snappy, yeah.
or
aggressive.
whatever you want. And it's really become something that's feel based, because you know everyone's personal with how they like their quad to fly, how they like their setup.
Mhm.
You know, you've got this. It adds a lot more to your rates than just, oh yeah, I spin at 667 degrees at full deflection. In between, it just follows this curve. It adds a whole another
Jerky
level
sticks.
that jerky sticks.
Jerky sticks.
The beautiful thing that I found with it is I know a few pilots that have had try it. It just takes them like 1 or 2 battery packs before they come up with values that they really like.
Mhm.
And then they're pretty much sticking to those values, and they just move it over to pretty much every craft that they have, just like they would their rates. So they just kind of keep it with everything because it's feel based. It has nothing to do with your PIDs. It's all the stick feel.
Yeah.
So bringing that from a Cinewhoop to an X class to a 5-inch racer, it's just like moving your rates over from one to another. It's essentially going to work the same.
With this little,
That's
with
awesome.
this little dude, and like my nutmeg and stuff, but more so with this little dude, because I like to fly this pretty aggressively at times. But then there's other times when I flip in low rate mode, where I want it to be really cinematic, and it's got a built-in DVR, so I can boot around and get decent footy. That's where the rate modes and having the stick PIDs come into play. Was I want to do that cinematic. I have a cinematic freestyle or cinematic mode, and then I have like a high speed mode or more snappy when I want to fly more aggressively with this rig. And it's I like it, man. Like I said, I use it on my Mob 6, and I'm blown away. It's just everything. I don't know. It feels so easier to hit. It just feels easier to hit lines once you get it dialed in the way you want it to feel. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Chad, how long did it take you before you felt comfortable with the rate dynamics?
Like day one. I was just fucking I was like, oh, this and I played around with it. And I was thinking, like, okay, in this type of scenario, I might want to fly this way, and then I would like try to find something that worked for me, and then flying fast. And I've been playing with it on the 10-inch as well, which is really interesting. Like I said, I kind of boosted it towards the end a little bit, but I slowed it down in the center just you know, but I could keep my rate profile pretty high and push it without even necessarily hitting full deflection. I'm able to get that to where I want rotationally, you know, and make it feel.
Yeah, with your natural movement of your hand.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you can push it over that 100% by, you know, upping the weight or.
Yeah, I don't have to necessarily, you know, worry about hitting full deflection. I'm finding I tune it so that I'm hitting that rotational spot just naturally with what my hands want to do, you know. But
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It almost seems like it's almost like gonna cut down, not necessarily on latency for the quad, but latency from what you want to do to like what you do.
We should have called it.
Yeah, what actually comes out when you actually make the physical input. What the end reaction is and what it should be.
These are like finger PIDs, bro. Like, you know.
Yeah,
I dub the finger pits. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and
I'm gonna call it that from now on.
Yeah, right. Stick feels, finger PIDs, stick PIDs, whatever. Like, you know, we were originally gonna have PIDs in the name because the sensitivity, correction, and weight are really, the sensitivity is a fake P term, but the correction and weight actually acts like an I term and D term. But just the name PIDs, it intimidates some people.
Yeah,
I had a few of the software testers. They were like, "Oh yeah, so how do I tune this to get rid of prop wash?" And it's like, okay,
no.
You're not understanding it.
You missed it. No, I think that was really smart, actually.
Yeah, so we're like, okay, so we had some time where we're thinking like, okay, what do we want to rename this to? How do we want to rename each parameter so that it still makes sense, but it doesn't just, you know, it still makes sense, but it doesn't intimidate people because it's a feel type thing. It's nothing to do with how.
How the quad physically is tuned.
Yeah, which I think that's crazy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One other thing we should back up a tiny bit about though, when you were talking about motor mixing, and I don't want to cut gravy off, but I don't want to miss this point either, is that talk about flip over crash, because that's the other thing with my Mob 6 that I keep bugging Kevin. I keep being like, dude, fucking turtle mode on my brushless whoop is the best fucking thing ever with what he's done with the power. And so explain that. And it affects brush considerably as well, right? So,
well, the brush that can do turtle mode.
Yeah.
Boom. So, yeah, I just did a little thing with turtle mode or crash flip. I still think turtle mode sounds better. But anyways, crash flip, I've essentially redone a little bit how the math for calculating how much power it outputs is done. And by doing that, we're able to unlock more power than turtle mode had before. And that's why the default crash flip power percent is 70, because it limits your motor output to 70%.
So you don't burn stuff up.
Yeah, so you don't burn stuff up or whatever, because this is the same value as before, essentially, the way the math works out. But now we've got a bit more power. We can still push out on turtle mode if you want to set that to 100. But 70 was kept default because that's, as a normal user, you won't need to change this. But, you know, if you have, you know, I know some toothpicks or other things run sensitive boards that will burn out quite easily when they try to turtle mode. So you might even want to set that to just barely enough to get you to turtle, you know, figure out what that is and then not get it any higher so that, you know, you risk burning electronics a lot less. Or if you've got, you know, some big X class and you don't ever want to use it to turtle, but you might want to use it to get you out of a tree, maybe you set it down to 30% or something. So you can still use it to jiggle yourself out of a tree.
What I found for me, what I've been finding clutch, I think I'm running about 85% right now on this. And where I find it's really clutch is when I'm getting lower on my pack, starting to get low. And I you know, I've gotten a situation where, you know, normally I'd be able to turtle out on a fresh pack, and then, but it's just not getting it. It's just wobbling upside down, you know. Or if you don't have any kind of a fin, and like this particular setup is pretty low profile on my Mob 6, but so I kicked it up, and I have no turtle mode problems. It's just like zip, and I'm up and I'm off, and that's clutch. This is probably one of my other favorite things that have been added, actually, is that, because for brushless whoops, it's fire. And you know, generally speaking, you don't have to, unless you're caught in shag carpet, you don't really have to worry about a whoop burning its motor while you're upside down like you would with a 5-inch quad, if in the grass or whatever. So you can kick it up on a brushless a bit more, not worry about it, and it's just like zip, and you're up and you're off, and it's like I was going crazy in DC with this shit because I was like, everybody kept going over to set my whoop back up. I'm like, no, I got it. Zip. And
Nice.
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I really think that most whoop guys can just set it to 100 and forget about it. I haven't done a ton of testing, but I'm hoping that, you know, the Tiny Hawk that has just real trouble turtling, that hopefully this will help to get it to actually be able to turtle more reliably.
Yeah,
I can imagine that one's a difficult one to.
My friend lost the race
because he was
lost the
upside down
race because of that.
Yeah,
couldn't turtle. Got an early collision. Couldn't turtle out because he was in the Tiny Hawk and got second place because of it.
like I
If
said,
he would have had our new angle code, he wouldn't have flipped upside down in the first place.
Well, I'll tell him to put some Emuflight on it.
Yeah, I mean,
I need to actually play with
It's
it.
a JRA.
Project Mockingbird's been doing some cool stuff with it as well.
Yeah,
So he's got some really good Emuflight tunes coming out.
yeah, we're excited. Patrick's awesome.
You actually reminded me of something else that's pretty neat. I don't think a lot of the testers have been playing with this, but it's something that I've been running on each of my quads now, is this VBAT compensation. Now, what this code does is it essentially compensates with more or less throttle depending on your battery, what voltage it's at.
What?
And so you see here it says VBAT comp type. This determines what you're using. Default is off. And then you've got boost, limit, or both. What boost means is there's this VBAT comp voltage reference, and it's 37, which translates to 3.7 volts. So if you set it to boost, whenever your battery voltage is below 3.7 volts, it will boost your throttle.
Huh.
Limit means that when you're above 3.7, it will limit your throttle a little. And both means that it will boost it above and then limit it below that.
That's
and then
perfect.
you've got the compensation throttle level, and that's just how much it will apply the boost or the limit. And then we also have it on your PIDs. So you can do like the battery PID compensation, and you can choose what level. I generally run this fairly low, but I run just a little bit of it. But generally it's this throttle compensation. And what I think is great about that throttle compensation is, especially on whoops and craft where you can really feel they're coming to the end of their battery, I can make the craft, like, it does lose some fresh battery top end power when you've got a brand new fresh battery on there. But in exchange for that, your whole flight kind of feels the same. You don't really get that sagging battery feel during your flight. Because as your battery sags, this boosts even more. And something that I've been thinking of doing with this is, you know, getting a 6S quad, putting a 5S motor on it, using this to kind of limit my maximum throttle on a full battery. And then as my battery dies, I get more access to that top throttle. So kind of the whole flight, it's like a fresh battery.
That's
It'll be a good safety.
That's an
for, like,
interesting
long
thought.
range. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you still might want to run some of the motor output limiting if you're doing, you know, running a 5S battery on 6S, but you'd still be able to kind of, you know, use this boosting and limiting of your battery voltage to just almost mimic, you know, a 6-cell battery on a 6-cell motor on a 6-cell battery, kind of the whole flight. You can kind of mimic that a bit. And this is something that all the quads that I've got now, doesn't matter what size they are. I just prefer the way that this feels. You do have to be a bit more on top of your battery voltage, because your battery just doesn't feel as dead when you're coming in.
Yeah.
So you gotta be
That's a problem already for me.
Yeah,
man.
we're gonna be frying batteries here.
It's already a problem for me.
You do have to be paying more attention to your battery voltage, especially when your on-screen display is like low battery and it's blinking at you. You gotta be paying more attention because you don't feel it as much. But yeah, that's one of these features. It's a little bit more hidden, but it's in the on-screen display. You know, it's nothing huge, but I like I say, I enjoy this enough to where I put it on all the quads that I fly, whether it's 5-inch or whoop or toothpick, I fly with it.
This is actually
Nice.
really useful for me because I've always, when I first flied my Mobula 7, I would fly it on 2S, and 2S in a house that's very small is pretty crazy. So I would just have it at 70, and then when I would notice the throttle, I would put it to 80, and then the throttle again, and I had it on a switch. So this would pretty much just do the same thing, but it would do it automatically.
Yeah, we
And
do it
have
automatically.
Land
And
and would do it.
yeah, I mean, generally on the smaller craft that I have, I'll usually set this to both. But on more of the 5-inch stuff, I'll just set it to move my compensation reference voltage down to like 3.5. And then the whole flight, it's just steadily giving me more throttle as I command.
My problem is when I wanted to switch from 75 to 85 or something, I would have to land, because if I switched in midair, it would just
shoot up.
So so the gradual thing is really, really nice. That's super useful for somebody who flies, indoors or
inside.
Yeah, and I mean that coupled with the auto cell count, profile selection, and motor output limiting, if you're going from 1S to 2S on a micro, inside, outside, whatever, you can play around. You can have a couple different profiles set up. That's really sick.
And
Well, I think you might be able to squeeze a little more efficiency even out of, like, say, a 5-inch. Let's say, like, because depending on your motor setup and prop setup, I mean, generally the last 20%, 10 to 20% of the throttle is not really doing
a lot.
It's not spinning up anymore.
Yeah.
You're just wasting like that kind of give and take of what you're pumping out and what you're getting out of it is going down immensely. So
you could eat a little of that back. You could hold a little bit of that back and save it for the ass end of your pack. That's
exactly,
because it does add up, and
cool.
that's a very good point. Like, because you may pretty much be saturating your rig at 85% or more. You know what I mean? Like, you're not really getting anything for that. You're just wasting. So and just by
energy,
just by motor or muscle memory, you're still full deflecting on throttle all the way to 100% throttle, but you're probably not doing a whole lot at the top X amount.
Yeah, that top 20%.
So you can grab that, save it for the ass end of your pack. That's pretty sick. Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's probably good for battery life too.
It could be.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you might be able to squeeze a couple, 20, 30 seconds out of something.
Well, it's good for battery life as long as you remember to land. You're not feeling the sag
before you kill it.
If you're if you fit 3.5 volts and you're like, it's not sagging, I'll keep going, and then it just drops because it's been feeling, more fresh.
It's not an excuse.
Well, let me clarify. Per flight,
per flight.
Your battery life per flight.
It's not an excuse to run your packs into the ground, but
I've been really terrible at that lately.
Bro, I don't
know why.
I blew another 2,200. I gotta sell. I'm gonna start making like Frankenstein some packs together because anyway.
Yeah, I've got so many good cells, but a whole lot of shitty ones.
Exactly.
And something that I just want to point out here is this feature is not unique to Emuflight. It was for a little while, but Betaflight has this feature as well. Because what actually happened is a guy called Tyler Corleone, he's Brazilian. He came up with this idea, presented it to the Betaflight devs, and they very quickly kind of told him to get out of there. So he came over to Emuflight, and I was like, I think that's actually a pretty cool idea. I was thinking maybe when you're doing it, your voltage will sag and then it'll give you more throttle and your voltage will sag more. So it'll kind of just do a runaway and it won't quite work out. And I was like, but I'm willing to test it. Tested it and it works great. And so that's why we kept it. Apparently some other guys over on the Betaflight side of things did some more testing as well, changed it a bit, did some more things, and got it to where they liked it. And it's going to be in Betaflight 4.2. So it's not unique, but
still a cool feature nonetheless.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is cool. And it's cool that
still the
developer
suite here.
Yeah, the developer that was writing it, he originally wrote it for Betaflight. They didn't have an interest, so we brought it over to Emuflight. But then the Betaflight developers, realized the merit that it does have, and it did end up making it into the cut.
Interesting.
So
that's awesome.
It's not unique, but I still feel like Emuflight played a key role in that becoming a feature in both Emuflight and Betaflight.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I've always said, like, you know, when people come with good ideas, if the idea has merit, the Emuflight team will definitely take a good look at it and try it out. I mean, it's, you know, and that's the unique thing about almost being a little more boutiquey, almost in certain regards, like in smaller, because you know the other guys just don't have time.
You have the room to do that, or they just burn out.
Could be, yeah. Sick.
Yeah, so that's a fun feature.
Fucking whoops and brushless whoops dream right now in terms of angle racing, and you know myself, like I was always that guy too. Like I always just want to fly acro even on a whoop, but I do see the merits of flying, you know, horizon and angle and things of that nature in whoop racing. And this is awesome. And as I've been playing with it, I've been using it more and more.
All right.
Does that say witchcraft?
It does say witchcraft.
Checking. I was making sure I wasn't like having.
Yeah, you're not missing things. So I'm really hoping this page doesn't just intimidate all of you, scare you all away from here. But
I mean, it's less intimidating than the Betaflight 4.0 or whatever 4.1 page.
Yeah. So something you'll notice here is the filter
It's
that's
less
set up
intimidating than
roll pitch
VTX tables.
Oh man.
Dun.
So yeah, something you'll be able to see is essentially all the filters here are split up into roll, pitch, and yaw. Roll, pitch, and yaw. Something that's not in this GUI that it's going to be added at some point is, unless you have expert mode enabled, roll, pitch, and yaw will all be set to one value. And, you know, you just set roll, pitch, and yaw to whatever it moves it. The real advantage to splitting it up to roll, pitch, and yaw is primarily that yaw axis, just because of how different yaw acts. For example, if you actually go to the Betaflight 4.2 tuning guide page on their wiki, they actually recommend that you stick a yaw low pass filter at like 30 hertz if you want to fly cinematic. And that's applying an extra filter on top of all the other filters. Well, yeah, they actually recommend that. And so what I've started doing, because I actually tried that, I was like, that doesn't make sense, but I'll try it. And I've actually started to really like it. On a few of my craft, I'll have my yaw low pass way low and my other filters up quite high, like 200 hertz. And then my yaws at like 30.
And what is the feel difference? Is that what it equates to, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, it makes my yaw feel just a bit smoother. It feels like a bit better,
like a baby's bottom.
And then if you sometimes
smooth as air.
Sometimes though, you can just hear it. You know, I'm hovering, and if I set this to say, you know, the same as the rest of them, it sounds a little bit more noisy. Then I bring it down to 30, and it just sounds a little cleaner in the air. And you know, you still have the second ones.
Well, one thing
you can
go ahead.
You can really set up. You know, you can really set up. I don't know why those aren't going to 0, but it's a GUI thing. We should be able to fix that. But yeah, you can really set it up however you want. And you know, roll and pitch, I'd really recommend you set those two the same, unless you've done logging that shows your roll or pitch is more noisy.
Different. Absolutely. And everybody should be logging. And there was a question Techlust was asking about, you know, setting up filters. And I think that we could spend an episode doing that. Part of the roll yaw pitch thing, you know, Helio had that from day one in the IMUF. And so you can adjust each axis accordingly. And one of the things, I mean, you have to consider is that yaw the noise on yaw is the order of magnitude of all 4 motors on that plane. So it is going to be different than what pitch or roll is seeing is in terms of what's coming to the gyro. I've definitely saw it on my larger craft where I would have, you know, I have a bit of noise on all 4 motors. And then when I'm looking at yaw, it is all basically added up, you know, from the 4 motors. So lowering it totally makes sense. And Helio always gave you that option. So I'm partially to blame for this idea because I'm like, dude, can we make it like Helio? And then now we have all these fucking values. But you can turn it off. You can turn off expert mode. You don't have it.
Yeah, and like I say, you set them all to the same value. It's going to fly fine. The only one that, if you're not logging, that you'd ever want to mess with differently is yaw. You know, setting yaw lower generally is just the way to go ahead with it. And something that I've seen is, since Emuflight does run a little bit of D-term on yaw, I find that setting my yaw D-term value my yaw D-term filter is just a lot lower, I can run more D on yaw without experiencing the negatives that you usually see with
it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, just by setting my D-term yaw filters a lot more.
And I think I don't know when this actually came into effect. One thing for Helio people, being a Helio guy, is that, you know, Kevin has enabled, like you said earlier, you can now run the matrix filter, or you can run, you know, static notches and things on a Helio now. So if you get into a situation, for me, I'm actually currently in a situation where I have an 8S rig that has a really low noise fundamental. I have a motor spike around 50. Now you can do something about it a lot easier without killing the rest of your performance by just low passing the shit out of it unnecessarily.
Nice.
And then the other thing is that we've, you know, as a logger and tuner, like, yeah, a lot of times if you log and you see a spike on one axis, but you kind of see that same spike on other axis, but the predominant axis, it's really apparent, you filter that one. Most of the time, it's going to correct the others. Yeah. So this just gives you a lot more flexibility to pinpoint actual problems and only address those without adding tons of latency across the board.
Yeah. And yeah, I just really don't want people to get
intimidated
by it, which is why we're going to have the expert mode just hide.
I think that's key.
All of them except for, yeah, because for most users, most users will honestly just select a preset and go with it. But if you really want to dig deeper,
the show all PIDs will eliminate some of that stuff as well, right? Doesn't the show hide PIDs on the top right there? Nerdcopter was saying something about it.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, hide unused. Yeah, you can hide some stuff.
There we go.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
And we're still, you know, we still talk about how this is panning out.
Yeah, we're still working on things, and as the release comes out, we'll still push more updates to
the GUI
configurator. Yeah. So some of these things will be changing a bit as time goes on. Yeah, I heard you mention Witchcraft back a little while ago.
Yeah.
So this code, for anyone that's an old school race flight pilot, you'll all recognize Witchcraft. It's actually a D-term filter. It's literally just a lagged moving average filter. What that means is it's currently set to 2 for roll and pitch, which means it looks at the last 2 D-term values on roll and pitch, takes the average of it. That's your new D-term. So it's just an average of the last 2. You can set it up higher or lower. Something kind of interesting that it does is it doesn't filter nearly as aggressively as our low pass filters, and it has more delay than the low pass filters. But sometimes on D-term, it can actually be a bit beneficial to give it a little bit of delay. That's just something that I've seen by moving Witchcraft a little bit. If you set it too high, you're going to run into some problems because you're delaying your D-term by too much. And because it's because it's a average filter, whatever your motor update rate is, well, your PID loop update, that'll change how much it's, the time frame of all of those. So that's something to, think about, but it's not too drastic if you're just running 8K or 4K or even 16 or 32. But yeah, you've got that. It comes direct from Raceflight. I have I think it's build 324. I have all the source code for that. Preston Garrison gave me the green light. I can go ahead, use whatever of it I want. So took Witchcraft from him. I figured if I didn't keep the name, that's kind of, it's not really fair.
Yeah. You give that to him. That's
is there an application that comes to mind when you might want a little more or less of this?
I don't know. I mean, just tuning. Occasionally, I'll just play with it a bit higher, a bit lower. Sometimes you run into some movement and you get some little bits of I can't think of what it's called. Prop wash. There we go. Don't know why that was going past me. You might get a little bit of prop wash from D-term, and adding a bit more of this can delay the D-term a bit more, smooth it out a little bit more, help with some of that.
So it can help with prop wash handling.
Yeah, if you look at some of like the really old race flight guides, they'd say that it's sometimes useful for when the D-term will, in a sense, pass the P-term, or pass, like it's reacting so quickly, it's really fighting your P-term as it tries to push you into the moves. And so delaying it a little bit can help with that.
Interesting.
So that's something to play with.
So, but it is effectively, if you're running a 16 or 32K loop, it is effectively working faster. Is that correct?
Yeah. And something to actually think about is in the latest beta flight, they've actually locked your PID loop to, not your PID loop, they've locked the gyro update rate to 8 kilohertz.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is locked there. What they've done is they made it so if you turn off this low pass filter 2, it turns it into the same exact thing as setting Witchcraft to 2 on each axis.
Oh, gotcha.
So,
well, because one of the things I mentioned is that, you know, race flight and Helio, obviously afterwards, you know, that part of its D-term handling was based upon that, and they were based on 32K primarily.
Yeah. So yeah, if you do run lower update rates, you know, you're running 4K PID loop or whatever, Witchcraft will have a larger effect because the time frame between each of those readings gets bigger and bigger. Whereas the rest of your filters, it doesn't matter what that time frame is, it accounts for it. But you can't really do that when you're taking an average.
Mm-hmm.
So
now Verb saying as latency on 3 or 4, but now what PID loop are you running at that point? Because that's the thing that's important to mention. It's like if you're running 4K or 8K, you're going to see more latency than you would at 16 or 32. Yeah,
it will cause some delay, but something else unique to Emuflight is essentially Betaflight over its history has kind of switched between D-term on measurement and D-term on error.
Right.
If you're familiar with those terms. And D-term on measurement just means that the D-term fights any change in gyro movement. So if your quad changes how quick it's spinning, D-term fights it. Whereas D-term on error means that your D-term fights change in error, which means tracking. So if your quad's tracking worse, the D-term will fight that and push it to track better. And feathered PIDs essentially just takes that and puts it on a slider. So if you set that to 0, you're running D-term on error. 100 is D-term on measurement, like Betaflight. KISS actually runs D-term on error. So if you want a more of a KISS type ecosystem, that's setting it to 0. And then, you know, you've got...
I mix it. I mix it, but yeah.
Artie, I thought you'd like hearing that 0's a bit more like KISS. But yeah, you can kind of mix it, choose what percentage of each. I've kind of found that if you run it near 50, kind of 50, 60-ish, you get to a point where your D-term, when you bang your stick, your D-term's not really fighting that, but it's also not pushing it. Whereas D-term from error, when you bang the stick, the D-term will push into that.
And pull.
So, yeah, Verb's saying that when he's tuning prop wash, he's pushed his Witchcraft a little bit, and I think that's really the thing. I mean, one thing to note is that one of the reasons why race flight and really popular, especially in racing and stuff, is its prop wash handling was fucking really good at the time. It was really, really good. So, yeah, man. So
so it's different. But if you want to try something interesting, 50 or 60, the feathered, you feather it to about 50 or 60, and it's essentially then just your P-term pushing, and it's not really having anything fight it when you're pushed into that move. And I found if I run it about 50 or 60, I can crank up my D-term higher than normal, and it starts to feel more latent once I kick it up a lot higher. But I've had D-term up to like 80 when my P-term's been at like 50. Yeah, and had D-term even higher than it. But so if you do want to mess with feathered PIDs, your D-term will be different, so you might need some slightly different numbers.
It's interesting though. I've ran some pretty high D-terms on the 10s, and I need them in certain situations.
What's default on the feathered PIDs? Is it
default 100, is 100. So default 100%. Is essentially the same as Betaflight or anything else.
Gotcha.
Well, not KISS, but same as race flight or beta flight. It's defaults to 100. 0 is more like how KISS does things, or beta flight 3.4 did things, or some of those other versions. And so you can switch between the two. Personally, as I've been switching back and forth, I generally stick it to 0 nowadays. Just prefer the way it feels a little bit. You know, makes more sense to me. But
I've been mixing it. Like I find it somewhere in between.
Yeah,
80 is a good number to try.
Yeah, but before I used to fly like 80 or 70,
Mm-hmm.
or even 75. That was common for me. So it's something there. It's kind of cool to play with. One of the last new things in this is smart D-term smoothing. I think we might rename that at some point, because I originally programmed it and kind of failed at doing it. And anyways, learned from mistakes, got it working. But this smart D-term smoothing can kind of, in a sense, act like D-min does in beta flight. So what this will do is, if you look at black box logs, and I know a lot of people may not have, but you can see your PIDs going up and down. You can see your D-term going up and down. Whatever value you set this to correlates to some of those values. So if you set this to 50, that means that if you're seeing in a black box log your D-term reach 5%, that's equal to 50 on here. What this does is it adds a curve that kind of smooths, kind of puts a curve on your D-term, so that when it's below this value, it has a curve where it shrinks your D-term and steadily shrinks it less and less until it reaches this value. Then your D-term responds like normal. And the most it shrinks it is half. So near really low D-term, your D-term will be, essentially half of what it normally is when your D-term's not doing a whole lot. But once your D-term starts kicking and it needs to move, this allows it to act more normal. So when D-term needs to get big, it is getting big. And so we let it act more normal. But below that, we shrink it. And so if you are going to play with the smart D-term smoothing, you also need to increase your D-term values, or it just won't fly well. So if you increase this, you also have to go back to your PIDs.
And give it more D-term.
Increase your D to compensate for the fact that you're shrinking it up until it reaches, if you see a log where D-term's going real high, once it starts going high, this allows it to continue going high. And
so for people who don't understand D-min, it's basically shrinking your D-term down to a level that the quad is still flying good. You have like no motor heat at that point. But then when you're actually doing flips and rolls, when you actually need that D-term value, it's letting it boost up, and then it's shrinking it back down naturally to that nice chill spot where you're just cruising again or whatever.
Yeah, or you run into prop wash. Like, say you set it to 100 on each axis and you almost double your D-term to account for the fact that your D-term's almost half now at low D-term values. So you set it up higher, you run into prop wash and your D-term will then kick higher than it would have before. But it'll also, so it's just something you need to play with. Some people don't like it. That's why the default is 0, but something that's there for anyone that wants to play with it. If any of you ever do try my default when it comes out, it will have some of that in there. With my default, I tried to include a little bit of all the different features so that people can see maybe some values that'll work together. And I think it's just kind of fun playing with all the different new things, seeing how they work.
Yeah, for sure.
But so that's, some people might like it, some people might not. It's, it's something out there. The last new thing added to filters is this IMUF sharpness. This is a kind of unique idea. So with Kalman filters, you have Q values, you have W values. That's what the roll, pitch, and yaw here. That's your IMUF Q. Here's your W. Essentially, the higher you set Q, the less you're filtering. And then W, the higher you set it, you're going to filter more. But kind of looks at noise. What sharpness does.
I always equate that to wavelength. W equates to wavelength. So bigger quads, you want to run a higher W. Smaller quads, you run a smaller W because the frequency of noise is actually higher or lower in those situations.
I've actually found that in some cases where if you just quickly, you're banging on the throttle and you see the quad bobbing a little bit, if I raise my W, I can get rid of that. I just go up a few points and it'll hold its altitude a lot better.
Yeah.
It's funny. Chad and I were actually talking about that about an hour before the show on my 7-inch.
Yeah, I mean, when I first flashed, and I was running Helio. This stems from Helios. I was familiar with it, and I just literally started at 64 on my 6-inch, and I left all my PID stock, and it flew amazing. And then at some point, I actually changed props for a heavier prop and a little more aggressive, but it was a little heavier as well. And I ended up having a little bit more prop wash, and I just upped my W, and I think I made it up to 128. Ish, and it was a wrap. It was just clean at that point. Some of the Helio guys used to run W at 64 or higher just because they liked the way it felt.
Yeah.
Willie Cashwell's actually one. He would run 64, I think he would run 64 on his 5 and 128 on a 6. And I run 128 on my heavy 6. So
yeah, and then
I got one set to 128 on my 7.
128 is a good starting point for 7, but you could definitely bump it up if you need. Again, yeah, I mean,
yeah, and then when I'm doing things, I like to run about as low as I can here, and I'll just bump it up as needed, because I don't really like the way it feels when it's super high. And so I'll run it lower and bump it up as I need it.
It's bananas though, because when you fly, like I said, when you fly like a 10-inch, like we're running 256, we're running big values there, and but we have no prop wash issues or anything. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, you're been a couple of edits you made, or at least I saw, where your stuff's so sharp for a 10. Anything I've seen, just
it's come a long way. And Kevin and I, so certain features, like I also use SPA as like a D-min, where I'll boost my SPA. So when I bang high deflection on my stick, I'm actually boosting my D-term to help counteract bounce back. Again, because I have so much mass moving that it takes a little more to stop that mass on a dime, like you would expect with a 5-inch, and so I'll boost D-term when I bang my stick.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, SPA is essentially TPA, but on your sticks. So as you bang your stick farther, it increases. Yeah. As your stick deflection moves, it increases your PIDs or decreases them. And so these are the defaults. Your I term gets shrunk a bit, P term boosted a bit, D term boosted a bit at full stick. Reducing I helps with I term bounce back. The rest of these help out as well.
The I ones.
So that's just kind of sorry, man.
I was just gonna say the I ones. For me, so Quick Flash loves the P one, the P side of it, and I love I and D on it because again with big quads, things like I term wind up are a lot more prevalent, and bounce back is a bit more of a challenge to get rid of. But you don't want to run around. You only want enough D-term to make a quad fly nice at the end of the day, because you don't have to worry about heat, and heat is loss of power, so running your motors nice and cool normally, but then having that high D-term when you actually need it, or when you need to boost it when you're running a larger quad, that's massive. It really is massive.
I can see that.
And then and the I-term thing.
The I-term thing's big. I really like it on my yaw.
He loves, I was gonna say he likes
I've pretty much just left defaults for pitch and roll. I don't really mess with that, but yaw, I'll stick it up, usually when I fly, I'll stick up my yaw P up to 150, my SPAI to like 40. And then my PIDs for my current PIDs that I'm running, I just tuned this morning. I'm running about this for my yaw on a toothpick.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, and then setting up my SPA like that, I can get a really nice yaw. It's a kind of yaw feeling that I've not been able to get on other softwares. And it just doesn't I've never flown KISS, but I've flown Flight 1 and Beta Flight, and the yaw feeling just doesn't feel the same because of some of the things you can do. But then I also like the EMU boost.
Kumo's saying,
yaw,
Kumo's
especially
saying be stingy with that. With what? With be stingy.
Be stingy with that D.
Be stingy with that
Oh,
D.
yeah.
Be stingy with that D.
So the SPA is basically PID attenuation.
It's
Yeah,
sticks.
yeah.
It's set point PID attenuation.
Yeah, so
isn't it?
it's the same thing as TPA, but it's now based on how far from the center of your stick you've moved it.
Yeah. Whereas,
awesome. No kidding.
Yeah, exactly. So, as TPA either boosts or attenuates based on how much throttle you're giving it. This either boosts or attenuates on how much stick deflection you're giving it. So,
yeah. And, really, if these values scare you, then just don't worry about them because it'll still fly great. But if you do want to get into it,
just everybody
also helpful.
Put a comment to tell Chad to make a tutorial on the best practices video.
I mean, for tune, like for me again, like with TPA, I always boost. But for me, when I start out, when I'm tuning, I turn all this shit off. Like I turn everything to 1. I'll leave my TPA up. I'll set my SPA all to 1 because 1 is effectively turned off. But then there's knowns. Like I know that I normally need 10, 20% on SPA D, for the size of quad that I'm tuning. So I might go ahead and do that. But when I'm just thinking, okay, I want to get a decent PID tune, I just flatten that stuff out. And I PID tune. I turn off EMU boost. I turn off, and I don't have to worry about feed forward anymore. So that's dope.
It's like editing. Exposure first.
Yeah, get your fundamentals set up. Put your rates in that you're comfortable with, or multiple sets of rates, whatever that is, and then, tune the fucking quad, and then add these things where you need them. And there are some situations where, like, again, like for me, like I might find that like I get a nice D-term value on my plasma trees and shit. Looks great on paper, but because of the mass of the quad, I still get some inertial bounce back. And with adding, a little more D on boost or reducing I-term in certain situations, I can eliminate that. And then with stick PIDs, I can eliminate my own stupidity. So, you know what I mean? So whoa,
what else do you need?
Yeah, bro. I mean, but for me, that's the thing, and like EMU boost, with the big quads, I don't tend to use it. When I break a prop, I'm introducing a shit ton of error into my equation. So I don't tend to run a lot of it. I do boost my yaw still. But on a whoop, absolutely. On a micro, absolutely. On a smaller quad, I'm all over it. Like, definitely throw some boost in there. I also turn up
on the D-term you're speaking of, correct?
Well, just in general, I add EMU boost. Yeah.
So what does EMU boost alone do? Does that do just pitch and roll and yaw is separate?
So yeah, EMU boost. These two. I highlighted the wrong ones. Anyways, EMU boost just does pitch and roll. EMU boost yaw does yaw. EMU boost, it's really like a boost to your P-term and I-term. It's non-linear, so it adds kind of a exponential curve to those. And the limit limits how big that exponential curve can get as a percentage of your P-term. So it can't become, if you set it to 20, it can only add a 20% boost to P-term and I-term. If you set it to 150, it can do a 1.5 boost, 1.5 times as big. Because, sometimes it can just skyrocket out of control and you gotta do something to bring it back into reality.
And,
absolutely.
Again, I think it's important, and I think that's why clarity from us and the community and the testing group, a lot of these features, we're trying to accommodate a large, lots of platforms. We want whoops to fly as best they can. So we want to give the whoop guys options. But as a 5-inch guy, you may not need, you may not use angle ever. So it may not apply to you, and you can turn it off. Yeah, it's things like that. And so we're working on, and as we've stated in the past, we're definitely working on the GUI hard. We're definitely trying to make it more streamlined and think about what is the smartest way. So that will definitely be a work in progress for some time to come.
Yeah. Something that I do want to do is have a preset that's different than default. That's just a tune. It'll have low PIDs, all of these features, just turned off, all of these set to 0. every single like fancy
just
feature, just, set them all to 0, turn off everything, come through here. TPA does nothing. Filters are lower than this, just really low safe defaults. It'll just be kind of like a tuning preset.
It'd be rad.
You just want to tune from scratch, you just pick that up and start messing with stuff. And what I want to do, I finally have some decent FPV goggles. I got the Orca goggles.
Oh,
yeah, you did.
Yeah, so now I can
Orca for the win. Let's get the updates, Orca.
Yeah, I can record DVR now. Before, my goggles could record DVR, but about like 3 out of 4 times I record DVR, it would get corrupted.
Right.
Yeah.
Really annoying for trying to film anything. And a lot of the stuff I fly lately is just mainly
with that
DVR stuff. So what I want to do is actually make like a tuning guide where I put on that tuning preset, tune the PIDs without touching anything else, get it about as good as I can, and then maybe move on to the filters a bit. Tune the filters. And once I get those 2 things, start playing with each of these other values independently and showing how you can tune them, how you can get them the way that you want, kind of the effects that it has, and change them. And then as I change that one feature, tune it. And then when I move on to the next feature, just get rid of what I've done before, so you can kind of see each individual extra feature and what it does. So if you want to start messing with them all, you might have a better starting point of like, oh, when would I want to apply this? And then, you might have a better video reference showing you like, here's, I've turned off everything else, so it's easier to see the effect this is having. Here's when you'd want to use Witchcraft or Smart D-term.
I want to do a safe macro preset. Maybe I can get Travis to do a 9-inch version, and I'll do a 10-inch version where it just, because again, I usually, when I build a 10, I start with my PIDs in a certain spot that I know is safe. I start with my filters in a known safe zone, and it's boom. And then
I think all the presets and things like that are just to lower that learning curve or the entry curve. I mean, because I think that's what most innovation has been about, right? Is trying to get more people in the air more easily with more enjoyment. And
if you notice too,
they don't want it.
Kev, keep that down for a sec. So if you notice on the presets, keep the presets pulled down.
Oh, this.
Yeah. So if you notice down there, like, now we're adding what packs it's created, the style of motors that are being used, and just trying to give you more of a baseline idea within the preset definition. So that, okay, this preset was made for 4S, and so you should know, right? You should know, honestly, like if I'm going to run 6S with this preset, I might have to drop my PIDs down a little bit because of it. But if you keep everything proportional, it should be okay, for the most, but it gives you a starting point to at least say, oh yeah, this works good here. Like actually, there's one that's actually for 4S or 6S, depending on the motor KV, and known working in those scenarios. So just trying to give you guys a little more idea of what you're starting with and what you're working with.
Yeah, and just because you might be running a 4-cell doesn't mean that you can't use. Well, yeah, just because you're running a 4-cell doesn't mean you can't run a 6S preset, or you got a 6S, you can't run this, or you could honestly put a toothpick preset on a 5-inch, but just be warned, it wasn't made for a 5-inch.
Yeah.
I think I've heard of a few guys running some of these like toothpick presets on a 5-inch, and they're just loving it. And then they're hearing stuff like
really?
This preset, and then they're hearing things like this preset wasn't made for 5-inch. Like you should be careful. They're like, oh, should I keep it on my quad? It's like, well, if it's flying well, keep it. It doesn't matter what it was made for. If it was made for a toothpick, but it's the best flying quad on an X class. It's the best tune on an X class, but it's made for a toothpick. Who cares? But it's an easier way to stay safe, because if you've got,
it's a different starting point. A lot of times that's like, especially when I was getting into tuning and trying to make my craft operate exactly the way I wanted it to, or I thought it should, having a different base point to start from sometimes just helped. Whether that was I spent way too much time fucking with shit and I fucked everything up, and I'm just, you know what I'm saying? You got to go back somewhere, but you don't want to go back to the same place you started in. So let's fuck it. Let me try something new. I think that was beneficial for me.
Yeah. And something that I like as well is if you just want to see how other people have been tuning, you can go, okay, here's the 6S quick flash setup. Here's how he ran his settings. Okay, let me check out how Pierre was running his on this preset.
Well, I think that's even more beneficial with how in depth and how adjustable everything has gotten.
Yeah, it won't really change a whole lot in here. This will change your TPA and SPA. The rest of this is untouched. You know, we're thinking of adding rate presets as well as some rate dynamic presets for people that want to try that. But yeah, this also does your filters.
I definitely think with the rate dynamics, you need to get a good race perspective, a good freestyle, a good cinema perspective, and at least have those baseline.
I know Kumo
presets.
Kumo Craft's in the chat. He does some racing.
Yeah, he should have some good race stuff coming out.
Yeah, he should definitely have some good race perspective. So
he's been doing real good with that stuff.
Super helpful. So
yeah, so that stuff's been really cool. So yeah, I just like how, you know, when our next build comes out, you want to see what other people have done. You're not quite sure what values to play with or how they'll interact with other things. Just check out some different presets, and that can help give you an idea. I've used it myself to kind of be like, okay, what have these other pilots done that are testers? How have they messed with things?
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's been beneficial to me.
Well, I don't know. Also, I mean, if you have, you know, somebody you watch their YouTube channel and you like their style or whatever it may be, just being curious and want to try what they're doing, see how their quad feels, or
the one thing
you know,
we definitely need to get in there is some more some variety of Cinewoop presets, because that's probably one of the most common things we're asked. So if anybody has any good ones, hit us up.
Yeah, I think that Skyline has some Cinewoop presets coming for version 3. So I think there should be at least one coming in here for Cinewoops. But yeah, that kind of stuff is moving on. It's really cool. Something I do want to see though is, as like a tester group, all of us to just kind of decide to all get one quad and all of us get the same one, like a ready to fly. And then we can all spend our time tuning it and then just share tunes with each other. See how it flies. That would just be a really neat learning experience to be like, okay, here's, you know, you give me free reign, you know, give everyone say like a week or something, you know, tune it to the best of your ability. Don't talk about your tune until you're done.
And then just submit them.
Just get it ready. Yeah. Submit them. And then let's try everybody, see what we can learn from everything. And I think that would be a really
fun, be a cool experiment,
cool perspective to learn.
Plus,
things.
but is Patrick going to commit PMB tunes to here?
Yeah, he's going to have some Project Mockingbird tunes in here.
Yeah, so
he's really excited about a lot of the stuff Emuflight's doing.
That's awesome.
Man. And again,
I'm excited to see that too, man. I mean, you're honestly, I'm going to have to get a 5-inch with flash. Well, I'd say my Flight 1 rig, but the flight controller took a shit for some reason. I mean, really, it was unexpected and not something I would think that would. I'm sure there's a perfect scenario out there that it does, because it did. But it makes me want to try that on a 5-inch.
I mean, not for nothing. Travis has pretty good luck with his revolts on his big quad. So I'm not sure how many he actually has in service at this point, but he was keeping at least one quad on a revolt for a good amount of time. He's got a couple other flight controllers in service. All my big quads are Helios, but all my small stuff is other shit. So I mean, I'm definitely keeping it real and trying out different platforms.
Where's Helios stock at? Does anybody have those boards anymore? Is Airbot?
Yeah. My FPV store sells them. They are coming in. There's, you know, I will just.
I want to get it all in one for my 6-inch.
I think there's one retailer in Europe somewhere. If you ask around, I'm sure if you go to the Emuflight Facebook and ask around.
I want to get my FPV store to stock the Mini. I'm not sure why they don't. I don't know why they haven't been, but and then one other, you know,
because if I go, I'm going 20 by 20.
Yeah, 20 by 20 is the way to go.
If you need one, I got one for you.
Yeah, they're definitely out there. The one Helio guy has his little Shopify store. And he's been.
Does he still?
He still has it. There's still minis on the store.
Yeah, there's still a few minis there. As soon as he runs out of those, I don't think he's restocking.
I don't know why my FPV store isn't. Actually, he's got the mini on sale for like $20 on his website. Right? But I don't know why my FPV store isn't. My FPV store is steady buying them and steady stocking them. And everybody, it's kind of like every little secret spot for good shit. Like they have some good shit.
Yeah, no, they do.
And you know, and I would say never. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some things come down the pipeline. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff coming. If you look, you know, I pulled up my Strix F10. Here's, you know, I've got it running. I'm
and Ready-Made has those.
So
that's right. That's right. I forgot about those.
Last release, our newest version for the IMUF was 213. Now we're all the way up to, we've got 229 that we've tested. We're still not sure if we're happy with that one. So for now, we might have a few different versions that are all sent out at once because
227's rocking. I confirm 227's rocking. I like it. I know Phil was in the chat and he's bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, he seems to like 229 and 227.
Mm-hmm.
I've been seeing some more guys going back to 226 or 225. So we may just release all of those with some release notes mentioning the differences between them.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it took a lot of builds before I found something that seemed to be better.
But it's because IMUF technology is not, you know, there is support, there is work being done there. Helios.
Yeah, so
don't worry about that.
Yeah, something.
Never die.
Never die. Something cool that I've been working on is a new thing for the IMUF. Sharpness.
Right.
So essentially with the filters in Emuflight, especially on the IMUF, there's a dynamic biquad filter. That filter changes its frequency based on the differences between your set point and your gyro, and kind of the relation between those, as well as now I added sharpness, which also adds a error kind of reading to it. And so the higher you raise your sharpness, it'll actually add a more dynamic part to your IMUF filter based on error. And error being the difference between your set point and your gyro.
Mm-hmm. Did you say well, I'm sorry to cut you off, but just to add a little clarity here, did you basically said when the quad has little motion, the filter's kind of just closed, right? But then when as the quad moves, it's opening. Is that right, or am I reversed?
Yeah. So the way it's kind of working is the math's kind of annoying. It took me a while to come up with something that worked. There was a lot of trial and error, a lot of like, hey, Phil, can you test this? Let me know if it's better. A lot of that. And we finally came up with something. But yeah, so when your error increases, your filters are going to kind of open up. So it's not necessarily when you're moving, because if you're moving and tracking perfectly,
right,
it'll still be filtering a ton, which whenever you hear people talking about filtering, the biggest thing they mention is delay. They're like, filtering delay causes problems, causes prop wash, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get rid of delay. Now, I'd say that's true most of the time, but I'd also say that if your quad's doing exactly what you tell it to, it doesn't matter how much latency the filtering's adding, your quad's doing what you want it to. And so that's kind of the idea with the IMUF filter, is when your quad's following what you want it to, just filter more, just ignore the extra noise, because you know it's doing what you want it to. As you start to see it deviate, you go, okay, wait a minute, I might be filtering too much. It might actually be moving. So now I need to filter less, reduce that latency, and it comes back. And so that's something that actually really helps out with prop wash, is as you start hitting prop wash, your error will increase. These other things will increase, and your filters will really open up, and your latency drops a ton. So you're able to counteract that prop wash. Then once you're back and locked in, your filter comes in nice and tight, and you know, just it's honestly over filtering when your quad's tracking. It's really over filtering a ton. The lowest the filter cutoff goes down to is actually 10 hertz. And 10 hertz on a biquad filter, you do the math, I think it's somewhere around 30 milliseconds of latency.
Right.
It's disgustingly huge, but it only does that if it's tracking near perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as it's not, that cutoff's going to go up higher, and it'll go all the way up to say 500 hertz. So it's a very dynamic low pass filter that the sharpness messes with. And yeah, by playing with this, we decided to name it Sharpness because Phil Byakin, one of the guys that was putting a lot of testing into it, he found that it could kind of make things feel sharper as he was increasing it. So something there, it's kind of a way of, in a sense, going against the grain with how most of the filtering has been moving forward, where everything's less latency. This is over filtering when filters don't really matter, and then easing up on filtering when that would become a problem. At least that's the whole idea behind it. And, you know, you set it up right, it'll fly really nicely and just gives you some extra.
I boosted it up to around 2000, I think, on the 10-inch. And in some cases, you may want a lower Q, right? If you go higher on sharpness.
So it depends on which IMUF version you're running, because the math to determine some of the Kalman prediction is the same for the low pass filter cutoff. And so in one of the versions, we combined the Kalman frequency cutoffs and how it deals with the Kalman filter, and we combined sharpness into there. The other version's sharpness was separate from the Kalman filter. And so if you're using the one where it's combined, you'll want to set, which is version 229. If you're using that, you'll want to set your Q. Yeah, you'll want to put your Qs down to just kind of ridiculous values that you wouldn't normally ever think of doing, because now your Qs are dynamic, but they're extra dynamic because of your sharpness. And so I think the plan is we'll have a few different IMUF versions out there with release notes, and people can try what they like, see what works best for them. But yeah, this seems to help out. I've seen some people, like some test pilots like Skyline and Phil Byakin and a few others, they mentioned that on version 227, which is where the frequency of that filter goes all the way down to 10 hertz, they mentioned that they were able to get about a minute longer flight time on 5-inch quads, simply because it's filtering so much that it's over filtering, but times where that over filtering would cause oscillations or prop wash, it eases up on it. And honestly, if it wasn't for the help of the Helio guys in the past, I wouldn't have had the idea to run the filters the way I did, because I took essentially what they'd done in the past, modified it a little bit, added a little bit to that, but kept the core of it kind of the same and just made it more extreme. Took it more to the extreme, saw how far I could push it, and apparently all the way down to 10 hertz on a biquad filter flies fine.
Wow.
So that's something that's unique to the Helio IMUF. You don't get that on normal flight controllers. And it's honestly just because I've tried to program it for normal flight controllers. I've never gotten it to fly well. So maybe one of these days it'll be there for normal flight controllers. If anyone wants to take a challenge and add it to them,
I don't know if it's, I don't know if it's, I don't know how to explain it, but to me it felt like as I raised it, like the quad itself felt a little more sharp. I don't know if that's, I don't know, maybe that's just psychological, but that's kind of how it felt to me. It just felt like, I don't know.
Sharpness makes it sharp.
It felt, yeah, it's tough it's hard to describe. You just have to try it. But I ended up around 2000 on the bigger quads. I don't know where everybody else has ended up.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, Chad, did you see any improvement to flight times on your bigger quads, or is that not something you paid attention to? Because that's one of the questions I had, that, you know, because I've seen it improve it on 5-inch. I'm wondering if it's still.
You know, I'd have to go back and look because that one video I dropped, I don't even know how long that one was. Honestly, I don't remember. But that
he also kind of mistreats his batteries.
There's that. That's a whole nother story. Especially if Tech and Vice are chasing me. Yeah.
If he's cruising, if he's actually like alone, yeah.
Snappy. Yeah, there's definitely factors there, but to be honest, I didn't definitively pay attention. I've also been changing up batteries a little bit, so it's hard for me to quantify, to be honest, but I'll have to pay attention to that.
Yeah, that might be something cool to test. Put on, I think you were running version 209 before.
Mm-hmm. I was before.
Might be cool. It might be cool to try to quantify some of this stuff a little better.
I mean, that has been the interesting thing is that in all of this, there have definitely been some quantifiable gains in flight time for many platforms. So, the Mobula 6 and the brushless whoops have seen crazy benefit, and definitely undeniably, I definitely get better flight time on my like Mob 6 than before. So,
that's awesome.
It's
it's definitely sounds major, man. I'm liking what you guys are putting out there. Is there anything else you didn't mention that you wanted to?
Yeah, it's pretty much all of the really cool stuff. I mean, just after this, we do have a handful of more Emuflight specific features that are in the works. They're not going to make the cut into version 3. But as soon as this is out, we're not stopping. We've got more stuff in the pipeline. We're also going to start going from, the day that Betaflight 3.5 was released, taking all of the flight code from Betaflight from 3.5 all the way up to 4.2 to whatever their newest code is. We're going to merge every single commit and then dump the ones we don't like. And possibly change some of them along the way.
Which will open up the
Yeah.
door for things like universal targets and things of that nature, upgrading the DJI support, adding the fast S-bus mode, things.
Adding the
little shit Crossfire widget, which a lot of people want the Crossfire widget.
What the fuck is a Crossfire widget?
It basically gives you, like, how there was a way you could set up logical switches on your radio, and so when your Crossfire was actually changing frequencies, it would change the RSSI LQ readings accordingly, right? And like, so Betaflight and Brain FPV was a big one that implemented it, where now in your OSD you see 300 on your Crossfire, but then when it changes frequency, it drops to 100, and then it bases like a normal RSSI would. But then you have your overall, so basically instead of going from 0 to 100, it now goes to 0 to 300, and then switches down to 100. And gives you that your old school type RSSI quality as the further out you get, basically. So it just makes your link quality and things a little more apparent and
clear to see where you're at.
And I mean, it's that's one of those things as somebody who's been using Crossfire for a very long time, and I've been stuck at 99, and I have the TBS shirt that says 99. 99 is fine. That's all I was saying. If you want, I get it. I've flown a brain with the Crossfire widget. It's cool. Did it make or break my day? No. But I did put the logical switches on my radio, so if I really, when I'm really worried about it, the radio starts bitching at me. So that's it,
Yeah, so
right on.
Stuff like that's in the pipeline. More stuff.
We're excited to see what's gonna unfold in the months and years to come with the Emuflight, man. And
one thing that I'm sure I'm going to be seeing a lot of in the coming weeks is, I think it was today or yesterday, Betaflight released their first release candidate for 4.2. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of videos on YouTube that's Betaflight 4.2 versus Emuflight 0.3. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of
comparison going on. And I think
I bet we're going to see
that's a good thing,
that.
man.
And
that's a good thing.
It's going to be fun.
I think at the end of the day, too, I just want to stress is like I said, as much as Kevin and everybody all this stuff is here is because people have said this has merit, this idea has merit. So we tried it, people liked it, it's there. Some of the stuff may get whittled back out down the road too, because we may find that it doesn't work as efficiently, or we came up with a better idea. It is definitely in flux, but it's the coolest influx thing I've seen in flight in ages, if not ever. I mean, there's just so many cool ideas, and it's coming into play here, and it's stuff from Not Fast Enough, and stuff from Patrick, and stuff from Bob Ruge, stuff from Kevin, stuff from the testers. It's very much a community driven thing. So,
well, I also love it. I mean, it just keeps everybody else kind of. Emu for me seems to be pushing a lot of things forward, and because of that forward motion from Emu, it's forcing everybody else to keep their game moving at a righteous pace.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Betaflight, they actually implemented the same exact thing as Not Fast Enough Racer mode. And, I didn't come up with Not Fast Enough Racer mode, but if I hadn't implemented that into Emuflight, I don't think Betaflight would be seeing that today. Same as some of that VBAC code. If Emuflight hadn't continued pushing that and implemented it into our code, I'm not sure if that ever would have made it into Betaflight. So I think there are some things where, because there's the two of us, we're actually able to both push each other, and it's able to push things because.
Well, that's what I love about this hobby and about the developers in this hobby is they're all getting pressure from everybody because everybody's trying to push it forward, and we benefit so much from all of that as a community.
Yeah,
definitely.
So that's cool. That's cool, man. Do we have any like footage of anybody flying on this the new firmware? Or if not, maybe we should get to some videos.
Yeah, I think it's that time as well. And it's just but is there anything else, Kevin, you want to you if you forget something, you can bring it. We'll in between videos. If anything comes to mind you want to add.
I think
I'm excited. I'm excited to get it there. I'm honestly excited to get towards the rebase. Kevin, Kaio, who's been in the chat, he's been working his ass off on targets. I've been helping and working on targets. I've been beating my head against the wall with the radix on and off for months on end. And honestly, once the 3.0 comes, and then when Kevin can sit down and start working on the merging stuff with Betaflight, like I said, those types of targets are going to become a lot more realistic and a lot easier to maintain, because the reality is Brain FPV writes the radix for Betaflight. All right. So we have to try to make it work, and getting ourselves kind of aligned in that, on those train tracks will help, It'll help with that.
Yeah, certainly. I'm certainly pumped about some finger pids, man.
And finger pids.
Finger pids. Yeah,
fucking finger pids.
As soon as those go out, I really want to see what pilots can make with that. Because the last few weeks, I haven't had a lot of time doing finals, working, all that kind of stuff. I've been pretty bogged down and busy with life and everything that's been going on. But I think that stick pids is going to be something that Rate Dynamics used to be called stick pids. I think that's going to be something that really sets Emuflight apart from these other softwares, because it's just a completely different perspective.
Yeah, but what I think we might end up seeing is more people doing it.
Yeah, if other softwares pick it up, I'm sure the way I've implemented it probably isn't the most optimal way. I mean, I wrote the code, put it out there, showed a few other devs. I was hoping more people would come up with some cool changes. Not a ton of that happened, but I'm sure there's better ways to accomplish it, and I'd love to see other devs pushing that.
Exactly, man. But that's freaking awesome. I'm super pumped about that. I'm still waiting for something to steal me away from KISS, man. So
hey, give that a try. Give that feathered pids at 0.
I am definitely going to give that a try.
Play around with that. I don't know why. I never thought about it that way, honestly, but that's pretty awesome.
All right, so I think we're gonna play some videos. Who do we have up for some vids tonight?
Do we want to play the? Let's play the. I want to play the. Hey, Paulo. Hey, I want to play him a little longer, but this is the first impressions from another developer. One of the developers from INAV, and I think
great guy,
amazing. And this dynamic filter is. This dynamic filter is owed to him, no? So,
yep.
All right, cool.
Why is that the default wave to a kid face?
Yep.
So here we go.
Hi, I'm Paweł Spychalski, and when 2 months ago, actually almost 2 months ago, I tried to directly compare INAV with Betaflight and Emuflight.
So damn cool.
I was not that much impressed with the performance of the Emuflight. Something was not right. A lot of noise was getting through the filters. It was
throwing a lot of heat right off the bat.
It was controllable, but comparing to
look at that LL Cool J.
Yo. Let's see what he has to say.
Lacked quite a lot of the performance. Luckily, some time passed, and we have a new unofficial versions of the Emuflight with new features, with fixed Kalman filter, with my implementation on the gyro matrix filters, and some on the new hopefully improved features and just improvements. So I think it's time to give Emuflight another chance. I have Emuflight 0.2.50. I think. Why, guys? Why haven't you finally released 3.0 as an official release?
It's coming,
Please,
pal.
guys, Emuflight, do it. I have it flashed on complete defaults. Nothing, no tuning, no checking. I'm in my favorite flying space, and let's give it a try. Okay, guys from Emuflight definitely improved something, because something that I noticed last time, the constant oscillation and the flutter of the propellers, is definitely gone. The filters, even on the absolutely default settings, are behaving at least nicely. There is no visible oscillations. And let me try the punch out. Okay, no vibrations on the punch out as well, so that's really nice. And definitely the PIDs are not too low. The quad feels actually very controllable in flight. I would have to say it really performs amazingly. Really, guys, I have no idea what you did. Is it the matrix filter, or finally the Kalman filter is behaving like it's supposed to be behaving? But this thing flies great, really, honestly, super controllable in flight. Everything is great, everything is fantastic. Motor sounds great, nothing vibrates. I have to say that really, honestly, I'm impressed. The only downside, but it's not really downside of the Emuflight at the moment, is the fact that I cannot show you the HD. I fit. I cannot show you the HD footage of the flight, because the frame I'm using right now, I cannot really mount my GoPro on it. The Tempest frame is great, and I know that there is a way to install GoPro session on it, but I have no session. I have only full GoPro 7 and 8, and unfortunately this thing just does not fit on the Tempest, because wow, really super. I know the term locked in is used too often, but this thing is locked in. I would have to even say that this thing flies better than INAV 2.5? Maybe not better, but actually very close what INAV 2.5 and me are preparing for the next release. It's hard to me, but this, okay, maybe the prop wash was not that great over here. It's really great. I cannot compare right now with the Betaflight 4.2 because I haven't tested this thing yet, but definitely I have to sit on INAV and improve how INAV performs on default.
That's awesome.
The difference is very subtle, I have to say. I was flying with INAV on the same very quad and exactly the same propellers yesterday. It's really hard for me to say if it flies better or worse. I would have to say it really flies behave, and if I was given just an example of how Emuflight 0250 or INAV 2.5 flies, I would not be able to distinguish one from the other. Like with the previous release of Emu, just the amount of vibration was killing everything. Here with 0250, it's really great. I think I actually wanted to fly only 2 lipos on the squad with flashed with Emu, but I think I will fly more. It's really super nice, super agile. Well, this is a racer. This is really a full breed racer I was using like in the series 2 years ago. And it's super light and very agile and maybe not over powerful, but powerful enough. No, this is amazing. Really, this is This is
That's the
great.
stuff.
This is great. I really have to check how Kalman filter will work with INAV, because this is something else.
That's big.
This is super, 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 super cool. Okay, I think it's time to land now. So, the flight test is over, and I have to say I'm very, 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 very positively surprised with the latest Emuflight.
Look at the
official,
face
guys,
change.
please make this thing official. This thing flies great.
It's awesome.
The Emu team definitely did the lesson, did the homework, and it's fantastic. Honestly, it's fantastic. I love how this thing handles my quad without any problems, no vibration, no oscillation, controllable prop wash, although the propellers are like 2 generations old and the prop wash was never very good on them. Great, great, great job. Is it one feature that made Emuflight that well, at least for me and on the squad? Probably not. Probably they finally fixed the Kalman filter and improved another filters, and there's a My Matrix filter, and there are really dozens of hours of development work that I'm sure went into the latest Emuflight, and the result is fantastic. Honestly fantastic. It's been a while since I was that positively surprised by anything. This is honestly, this is the best positive surprise I had in like last month, probably. It's fantastic. This is the guy that usually is the grumpy and sees only a downside of things. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Beta flight. You have a competition. INAV, yeah, definitely. INAV also has a competition now, because for me, if I would have to compare right now how latest Emuflight and latest INAV fly on the faults, I would definitely not be able to choose the one that flies better. Very simple, because they are really very, very, very close right now, and not much worse, maybe even better. Oh, okay. The next round of comparison between the major 3 or maybe 4 flight controller software in a few months. Not right now. So far, yeah, this thing definitely is something right now. Okay, so thank you for watching. Until the next.
All right. Sorry, Artie. So what was important to catch there is that, number one, he's another developer, obviously, for another software, but like he is usually a grumpy, and he's very honest. Right, and it really kind of, that transformation that you mentioned towards the end was pretty amazing to see in all-in-one space.
Yeah, definitely. No, I was just talking shit earlier. That's just what I do.
What's cool too is that INAV has been around like for fucking ever.
Yeah,
like they were like the original. Were they a fork off of Clean Flight?
Yep.
Yeah,
they were the original fork off Clean Flight, I believe.
And I think they're known more for wings and things than necessarily quads per se. But he's definitely, using it.
They have more like GPS based wings and like RTK stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was
that's what I always thought of it as, because when I started flying, that's all it really was. I mean, you could put fly quad with it, but
it's just pretty awesome to see a turnaround like that from somebody who wasn't, shall we say that, he was very honest in the past, and he had his complaints. So no,
I like Pavlov a lot, or whatever his name is.
Nobody can pronounce his names. I
just don't want to butcher it.
He said it at the beginning, bro.
I've watched a lot of his videos. He helped really explain filters to me.
Yeah,
I mean,
I like
he
him
definitely
a lot.
gave me. Yeah, no, I do too. Again, it's a very endearing shit talk, but still, I fucking bust everybody's balls. I like you.
Exactly.
All right, so let me do this another way.
Stop.
And he doesn't usually look that hard, like with sunglasses and a fucking vest and shit.
Right?
Well, he had you to fly Emu.
All right, next video coming up is Gearhead rocking a Squirt Cinewoop.
Squirt.
And I'm not sure, is he in the chat? Gearhead, you in the chat? Is this on Emu? I don't know. I don't know what he's running.
I don't know, but I want to Squirt V2 real bad.
I have one in my cart and I'm just waiting to pull the trigger.
Also, I want to give a big shout out.
too.
I want to give a big shout out to Nerdcopter in the chat. Nerdcopter puts in fucking work. So, and man, yeah,
Yeah, thank you for that.
this
Nerdcopter is the man.
This project would not be part of what it is without Nerdcopter. I just want to say that he's a fucking man. Love you, bro.
And I love your FPV name. Nerdcopter is
He's a
dead.
good dude. I've known him since I first started, like,
Was asked,
actually,
he
like,
made some reference to
come up, I
the
guess.
enlightened mind being like a mind of a child. And he said, well, what is the mind of a child? And he said, a ball in a mountain stream. Why? Thought follows thought instantaneously without interruption. So the saying, walk or sit as you will, but whatever you do, don't wobble. And so you will notice that thought follows thought follows thought when you are just ruminating. And those thoughts arise and go like waves on the water all the time. And they come and go.
Nice.
Gearhead kills it. Such a good dude, too.
Wait, what? Oh. Wait, what?
No, it's like Gearhead kills it. Such a good dude, too.
Oh, hell
Yeah,
yeah.
man.
I'm trying to text him right now to see what he's flying on that. Hey! He's not answering the chat. Yeah, another big shout out to fucking Kimo Craft in the chat. Phil was here. I haven't seen him chime in. Oh, there I think he's still here. Phil is in the chat. Kyle in the chat. Again, nerd. Let's try to check, see who else is in there.
Hecklaw's still around.
Huh?
You got
Hecklaw's
Austin
still
Washki
around.
in there.
What the fuck?
Austin's in the chat. He's one of my coworkers.
Nice.
Oh boy. Yeah, we're gonna play this one early because then everybody could. Swift Duck in the chat. What's good, bro? Swift Duck came in and played Liftoff with us for a while after the last week.
Nice.
Dude,
Hello.
he kills it. He's one of my local homies. He lives like real close to me.
That word.
I actually taught the dude how to solder. And now he's just like building all his own stuff. It's so good.
That's
Every time we go fly, he's like, dude, I built this. And he's stoked on it.
All right, we're gonna play an Erod
awesome.
Erod video.
Hello. You're all wet.
That's what she
good.
It's Edwin's birthday party.
Have we
It's been
played this one?
raining for the last hour.
Pretty sure we did.
We played
There
this
we
one
go.
last week.
Get it, birthday boy.
You're muted, Vince.
Make sure you
Vince
can
is
stand
talking.
up.
Nobody's hearing him.
No, it's in first because.
But I'll watch it
maybe,
again.
maybe I
Putting you dumbass.
Did
don't know.
not
Maybe
do.
it's just different view from a different person. You know? You saw Brad's version of this. Now Erod's version.
We did see a
Hard to
lot of
tell.
different versions. So.
Yeah, because they wilded out on Erod's birthday, rightfully so. Yeah, I don't remember the song,
All right.
but we did watch a lot of videos.
It is hard to, yeah. It's hard to keep track.
But it's a good one.
It's simple.
so-
Look at the date. Did it come out before last week or after last week?
I'll look after.
All right. I'll go check right now just to make sure I didn't send you.
Shout out to Edwin, dude.
All my Florida guys.
Yeah, this video was released the day after our live stream.
When your nightmares turn to real life and the ground's filled up with landmines, we will face it standing side by side. You know I'll come running when you need. I'm coming. You know I'll come running. You go to war, then I'm going with you. Pick up my sword, yeah, there's nothing I won't do. When you sound the alarm and the chaos is rising, leading the charge, yeah, I'm coming, I'm fighting. Swear on the breath that I breathe, I'll never retreat, yeah, I'll be your If you go to war, then I'm going with you. Pick up my sword, yeah, there's nothing I won't do. When you sound the alarms and the chaos is rising, leading the charge, I'm coming, I'm fighting. Swear on the breath that I breathe, I'll never retreat, yeah, I'll be your army.
Sick.
Hell yeah.
Sick.
Fucking dope.
Hell yeah. Oh. Hey. There we go. All right.
What we got next?
Tech list.
All
One's on
right. Tech.
Emuflight, right?
Yeah. Oh, my bad. Shit.
was a wet day. Huh?
What fucking day was this?
The rainy one.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. A day when you just had to fly.
Yep.
Kind of feel like I saw this already.
All these videos are from after. Like, if you look at the date, they're all from after.
Chad said, "Oh shit," when he started playing it.
I'm glad I was sleeping through this dirty ass wet shit.
He's like, oh, this is the day I was supposed to show up and slept in? Is that what you're saying?
Yo, dude. Yeah. Just look how wet and fucked up it is. Fucking New York
I
weather.
remember the last time I went out. The last time I
Good
went out
flight,
like that,
man.
when I planted into the mud, it like went like 2 feet in and just so disgusting. It's the worst because you have to clean it so much. That's why you bring it
No,
to
you
your
don't.
bush.
Nah, you just leave it that
everybody
way
brings it to
until you
The
until you
motor
have
wouldn't
to.
spin.
I just
The
throttle
motor
up.
wouldn't spin. No. It was literally caked on.
Over
I was
Oh,
there
yeah,
with
well,
it.
Hand
Come
pit
on,
behind
Chad's
my
got a
house, so-
toothbrush too.
Yeah, I got a toothbrush and another brush.
I carry a couple.
Yeah, me too.
I just pin it and blow all the shit out.
That works too.
Follow me for more recipes.
Can I just say that tech's been progressing really crazily?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
He's been getting really, really good. Wish you should stop because it's not fair to the rest of us. You can't stop.
Always thinking about yourself. Always
Having
thinking
a
about
car and
yourself.
shit. I know. I mean, how dare he have a car while I have to not have a car?
Yeah, it sucks.
Just- yeah. This is pretty a good example of New York weather lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Northeast is just all fucked up.
And if it is
More than just fires.
if it is nice, it's full
I
of
almost thought he was going for that hole.
if it is nice, this whole area is full of fucking people.
When it's not like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, here it snowed yesterday. Like, we just had flurries, and then it was 65 out today. So, that's the Northeast for you.
Yeah, dude. Memphis has been crowded on nice days.
Raining tomorrow.
Just in the morning, I think.
He was feeling it.
Is that the I didn't crash dance?
Oh, for sure.
That's why I know.
It's definitely a happy dance.
There was a happy dance.
I mean, you know when you just feel like you got a good flight, you always gotta.
So even though I've turned off auto, you know what? Let me look at something really. Where is autoplay now? Autoplay, I swear it's fucking turned off, but it keeps playing. Maybe, bro, I'm telling you. Although the playlist is clutch, Vince. That's all I'm gonna say. All right, next up we've got Adzo from the UK,
Yeah.
Let me.
an old school Helio kid.
I want to fly that building so bad.
Yeah, I know.
I already love this video.
So sick. Interesting architecture is just the best.
Yeah.
Big, interesting architecture is so good.
Under 400 feet.
No, I want the structure to be 960 feet.
Yep.
Because then I can go 400 feet above it.
Yep.
Exactly.
Because Bank of America building in Atlanta is 960 feet. It's like the tallest building in the South or something.
Oh no shit.
Yeah.
Lost in the fake, I'm just trying to find realness. She's the only girl to me that's appealing. Oh, it's so real. I'm lost in these thoughts and I'm lost in these feels. So let's get lost in these pills. We can drink and get some chills. They say that we kills, whatever. I mean, it's whatever. My friends say that I could do better, but she's like the warmth in the sweater, the cold in the winter. She is a sinner and I am a sinner. I have my
It's a dope spot.
from the beginning. Now I think that I am in it. We are not finished. Let's get to the kissing. That's what we've been missing. I'm sorry, been distant, been lost in my vision. Attraction is different. There's something I'm missing. There's something I'm missing. It's you that I'm missing. Thought we were like glue, but we ain't sticking. Nah, we ain't sticking. There's something I'm missing. We ain't sticking. We ain't sticking, you thought that I was just kidding. Well, sorry, I'm not tripping. I'm leaving. This situation was ridiculous. It's venomous, it's eating me alive, and I'm not into this. I leave you with my penmanship. Wait, let me vet real quick. Sorry, I had to do it. They say I'm sorry for making mistakes. If I didn't, I'd lose it. I'm making my own amusement and smoking and steady cruising. Ain't got time to be snoozing. We all gotta win, but some of us is losing. You might as well get up and start moving. It's your choice now, so you better start choosing. Through all the bends and the bruises, losses and losing. We're winning, controlling and cruising. Like, this is how you do it. It ain't nothing new shit. Think about what you have before you lose it. I ain't got no time to be losing. I ain't got no time to be losing. You know that I'm flying. You know that I'm trying. I can't even hide it. I can't even hide it. You know that I'm flying. You know that I'm trying. I can't even hide it. I can't even hide it.
Bet you won't go in one of them windows.
You won't do it. Who's leaving? Good night, Nerdcopter.
Thanks for everything you helped with, nerd.
Peace, brother. Stay safe out there.
Sick.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want that building.
God
right
damn
there
it! Stop.
at the end.
Which one? The one at the end?
Yeah, and the beginning.
I'm really hating this thing right now. Damn it. All right. We got the one like Redbeard up next.
Oh, yeah.
Why can't I have a spot like this next to me?
I know, man.
Oh, hear him as well. Is he using that real steady stuff?
I don't know.
I know you said a couple of the Florida guys have been messing with it.
I don't think that one is.
I have like an old abandoned aggregate plant, but it's like an hour away from me. It kills quads. It's so bad.
Yeah, but can you be up there all day? Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, dude, we can camp there and be there for days.
Oh well, I'm in, dude.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, well, come on up.
As soon as we get some movement, I'm coming, bro.
All right, man.
I need a road trip myself.
Be out there until we break everything and then go home.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm bringing them
Sorry,
all.
you bring extra. Yeah.
I mean, I fly three, two fives and a 7,
motors.
but I've got like 6 or 7 others that just need like little repairs to be flying. They're just old shit, you know.
Those, dude.
Yeah.
Bring like 15 micros so everybody can fly them. When we break all our 5s, we'll just fly all the micros.
Fly tiny
Yep.
The magic number is 8.
Hey,
If
dude,
you
I
have
have a ton
8
of
quads, you will get some great footage, and you will still have at least one.
And no
Challenge
cameras.
accepted.
No cameras, yeah, no cameras. Bro, I've had this
It's like
Hero 8 like longer than I've had any other GoPro.
Yeah, like I'm starting
yet
to
to
wonder
use
when my
mine, and
warranty
I've had
is
it
up
for
on
4
it.
months now.
Yeah, like loving that thing.
Dude, even my Max, I've had my Max for like 4 months, and I don't know how I fly that just like it's any other camera.
Yeah.
It's got chunks missing out of like the rubber on the sides.
Hell yeah. Dude, yeah. Mine's like my 8 is like literally back screen is cracked, doesn't work. I just busted out the front glass, so I'm down to just the lens. and the front of the face is kind of probably up about 50 thousandths of an inch. And just off the, like, it's just, there's just a huge gap all the way around. This thing is fucked up, but it still works perfectly fine. Still connects to my phone and shit.
I folded one in half and it wouldn't turn on, but it was the first day I had it.
Word.
And then now
That'll
I
do
had
it.
this one. Yeah.
Yeah, my very first one I killed pretty quickly. But that's, I also like, I was like mid really fast trick and then tried to go under some, like into a parking lot under some shit and hit like a parking concrete thing.
I lost video and tried to punch out, so I did
Oh,
video
it's
again.
Shane. That ruined your day.
Oh yeah.
And I went like full speed into a curb. Instead of going up, I went down.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, it deserved to die on that one. You know what I mean?
It was so bad, Bot actually apologized. He said, "I'm so sorry. That sounded terrible."
Yeah, those brutal ones, man. That's like the first time I ever like just pancaked trying to do a power loop when I was just learning how to fly. Tried to do a power loop and just powered it full throttle straight into the ground. That sound will never leave. Like
I did those like all the time. Dragoneers probably saw me faceplant my quad, learning power loops like 1,000 times.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah, now I can power loop a 10-inch in a tight arc.
Yeah, no.
That's what she said.
Oh, I got to the point where I was
I wasn't.
I was
I'm
power
new here.
looping double gates.
What was that, Vice? What was it?
I mean, well, now I can power loop those double gates, you know,
Mm-hmm.
where you just immediately over under. So it's crazy. Just practice every day. You get fast, like you get good so fast. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's stick time.
I feel like I've gotten so bad.
Or just run a stupid camera angle.
No, I mean, I learned on 20.
You could
and now I fly on 30.
I pancaked on the ground doing something the other day and like hard enough to knock my camera flat. It was kind of fun flying flat. Like it was so easy to do everything and make it look super clean.
You adapt pretty quick. When you don't know that your camera got smacked all the way down, like to the base plate,
Yeah,
you adapt.
I'm with
I was just like, holy shit, why is everything so easy?
I'm with
See, I've had the opposite happen. I was crashing and then my thing went up to must have been 65 and I was like, and I just get up and I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, it's so fast, and I'm like, I'm coming in for a landing. Everybody's like out of the way, and I'm like, and I'm like, okay, this is why those guys do that. And I was like, that was intense, and it skidded for a few because that's something I never experienced. 65 and any of juice in the battery.
If I get up over, if I get like 40, 45, that's how I start feeling, is like, oh my god, I'm holding on.
45 is fine, I think.
45 is
45 is what I run.
It doesn't change the flight profile. At 45, if you go higher, it like changes yaw a little too much.
If I'm
Like,
racing,
you
I'm
start
running
dying or
higher.
rolling.
If I'm racing, I'm running way higher, and I'm not hardly using
yeah,
any
sure.
but I mean, I used to always rock like 60, but I slowed down for freestyle. But even on the 10s, when I first built the Nasty, I was sitting at 45. So it was like, and the 110 right now is sitting at a fixed 50, which is a little crazy. I'm not gonna lie. All right, next up is
Yeah, my 7, I keep it about 40.
Deathbeard. These fucking Florida guys, man, we gotta stop. They're killing me. Fucking Florida guys.
Right.
Don't be jealous because they got good spots and good weather. I mean, they drive into these spots hour plus.
But then they kill the spot.
they
It's
do.
not like they go there and kind of do some sightseeing. They're fucking killing these spots.
Business.
Awesome.
All business. I like it.
Yep, it's awesome. I love it.
I no longer stand in a room. You can't say you're the best in a room. Try step into man of this dress.
Sick track, too. Holy shit.
No, no longer stand in a room. Anybody wanna try testing?
Yeah, I really like his style. This is one of the styles I prefer.
You don't see me now. 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 You don't see me now.
No.
You don't see me now. You don't see me now. We're dead. Cause it looks like
Nice. Definitely straight killing it.
Yep. No prop wash. You gotta love a fucking power loop with no prop wash. Yep.
I think he's running Fatec.
I don't have any prop wash in my power loop.
I mean, it's not like I'm, just because I said he does doesn't mean. I mean, I don't have any prop wash in my power loops. I mean, if we're talking about, I don't think I see prop wash in Artie's power loops, and I would never dare say Gravy's got prop wash in his power loops.
Nah,
Oh yeah, this reminds me. I wanted to ask about cinematic yaw. Does that mean I can cheat yaw spins, basically? Because my yaw spins always kind of...
You talking your inverted yaw spins?
Yeah, basically. Like when I do an inverted, it just...
Yes.
Can't, I can never get the right angle.
Just yes.
Yeah, it's...
So I can cheat it?
No, the cinematic yaw maxes at 90 degrees. Because once you go past that, the math word just gets weird. Might be able to.
Damn, that was down.
The gravy filter then.
If you're down to test stuff, I might be able to try something out that might work for what you want.
Actually, if you want my black box log, I'll go out and do a bunch of yaw spins, inverted yaw spins.
Because that's one of my kryptonites right now. I can't do a good inverted yaw spin.
And it's one of my strengths. What you have to do is you have to line up the quad. You have to remember to line up the quad, not the camera.
Killing that.
That was gnarly.
Big Willie style right there.
That was awesome.
Fucking that one, the dirt just murdered that motherfucking spot.
All right, next up we have Wilder, who just woke up from a nap, apparently. Look at the list. I don't know where I'm at anymore. I'm just playing them in order.
Damn.
I got Techless talking shit because I haven't flown in 4 months.
This is a minute. That's what I'm talking about, Wilder. Nice short minute.
Ooh,
I wish this was
running
fun.
hot.
This tune is actually really, really clean. Those motors sound great.
like me flying.
Nice, y'all.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Yeah, buddy.
Woo. You see, that's way cleaner than mine. See, you got exactly. I get so excited, I just crash right after. I do anything really cool. I'm like, oh my god, that was so awesome. Oh, the truth. No.
Dude, I'm telling you, for Eddie
And then I cut it.
Gospins,
Then I cut it out.
The trick is to remember what your angle is and line up the quad with the ground, not
I
the
could
camera.
do that, just not upside down.
Yeah,
Like I can yaw perfectly.
No, but that's what you have to work with is just make sure the quad's flat. Don't think about your camera. It might be looking down at the ground, but if you're gonna do an inverted yaw spin, just remember what your quad is, like where that is.
Maybe I'm trying to compensate too much instead of not enough.
I mean, we all do.
I pulled one on the 10 off that last that when I went out that testing day. I pulled one on the 10 and it made my asshole pucker. I was fucking shitting myself. I can do them on the smaller quads, but I actually pulled it and I was like, what the fuck? Unfortunately, my footage was too dark. I could, like, we've talked about this already. I want to actually try to see if I can do something with that one. But next up is fucking gravy. Oh my god.
Hey, at least the song's good.
Yeah, man. This guy he's changed since he came forward.
Yeah, dude, he's changed.
And this is on Emuflight, by the way.
Damn, look at him.
Hey, yo, hanging out the Royce with the Russian. Everybody ducking. Only 5
This is almost all a 7-inch. There's only 2 shots that are 5-inch.
Nice.
Giving game to my younger. I told him shit don't come in, you gotta want it. Had that money back on time to me if I front it. I pull that gun up and slip it. You better run it. Shells dough like oatmeal, they sit in your stomach. I came home and that niggas bidding them numbers. I'm thinking about which block that I'm killing this summer. Yo, the young rocket 357 to your throat popper. Lay streets watching. The different color duct tape. I bet that shit got cut. My shit swimming. Made to now we winning.
Reverse wall tap.
CEO knocking out my sale price on the linen.
Power loops.
Look, you know the wheels got the big P's. The wrist freeze, diamonds dancing like Chris Reeves. 3,500 my sneakers, you can't get these. After I nut, I made the bitch leave. You know my wrist, I double up if the brick clean. But now I get that for a 16. And I spin it like it's dough from Lotto. See, dollars. The bullet's big as a Corona bottle. Call 20 bands for a convo. My niggas all coppers. Last time I cooked up, I wore a poncho.
Nice.
On your bra, one, she hit me the next day, but the car blocked. All my shoes on, I'm in the 2-seater with the roof off. Smack the rap strap, knock your shoes off. Air hole take pull off, no screw off. Head shot up close, it's just all blew off. Cooper, this is my new law. Diamond tennis chains, VVS is in the new cross. Bring your biggest gun, nigga, we can have a shoot off. Only hit 3 niggas, I'm not 2 off. We the upper echelon of the hard rappers. The most sought after, ball after ball after ball after ball. We raw like soft at a traffic. Nigga got out of pocket, dog, clapping the hardest.
Alright, so this is a 5-inch. This isn't a 7-inch.
Came with a forklift. We made niggas bosses. Doing it from the stage to the faucet. They know we the hardest. I hit that leg.
I like that transition.
They want the wave like a dog. Gang, talking.
I've been learning to edit. Finally.
It's fun, man.
They know we the hardest. Use your brain for they torture. Lock and load and aim.
This whole complex is all abandoned. They were just,
It's abandoned?
Yeah, it's a bit. Dude, look at all the Jersey barriers blocking off the parking lots.
Oh, word. I didn't notice those before.
Oh, yeah. And the only people that are there, they're just out there to like smoke weed or fuck. So, and I wasn't there to do either.
Yeah.
Nice. Gravy. Nice edit, man. That was a dope flight.
Thanks, man.
You said most of that was 7-inch?
Like 99% of that was 7-inch. There was only the part where I booped the dick sign.
Yeah.
And the part where I was orbiting the Mustang and like a couple people. That was the only time it was a 5-inch.
Oh yeah.
Next up, we got
the dick.
We got Rat on a 5-inch, sending some long range. He's up in altitude, so I want to see how this is going.
Wow, he hacked all the way for this. Those are fun flights.
Oh yeah.
I wonder.
Speaking of puckering buttholes.
Yeah, really.
What were you saying about puckering buttholes?
Fucking long range flights, bud.
Oh.
Fly to the top of a mountain. Yeah, I've done it. Last year I went to Colorado and did a little bit. And it was fucking awesome. I went 2 miles out. And it was scary as fuck.
Like, once you hit a mile, it gets kind of gnarly. And then you come back and you're like, all right, that was a fucking mile. And then you're like, I have to go further than a fucking mile.
That's what I did,
2
man.
miles and you're like, all right, fuck the whole thing.
Yeah.
Big Oily.
I did it.
Big Oily's like, I would just cut my losses on a failsafe here.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Well, it depends. How much time do I have?
All of it. Well,
and I'm going.
Rat lives out here.
If I had
if
I had a dirt bike or some shit.
Oh man.
Give me an ATV.
Definitely. Yeah, give me a 4-wheeler, man.
We out.
I'm good.
Give me a Sherpa that can go get it for me.
Right. Nah, bro. All you gotta do is offer a wook something.
Oh, like I just can't get past the like, oh, I crashed by a tree and a rock. And it's like, yeah, well, which fucking tree and which rock?
Yeah, you better have some DVR.
Yeah, DVR and GPS are a must.
Yeah.
I still don't record my DVR.
Oh, I do. I mean, since I got the Orcas, I don't have the automatic set on, but usually I just automatically. But I also pop like a 64 gig in the GOGs.
Right.
You've got DVR for days.
Yeah, I mean,
that
way by the time I'm deleting shit, I forgot I've done it anyway.
It's interesting to see how the air pressure affects it.
It's a lot, dude.
Yeah, they all fly like 50-50s out there. They all fly the Doll 50-50.
You have to for any kind of authority up. Like,
well, that's what it's weird because that's what I fly here. So I'd go out there and I'd be like, I need more prop, and there isn't.
Yeah, no.
Not totally true. I run 7s, and Master Airscrew makes 10s.
That's true. Oh, I'm talking like for a 5-inch.
5. What's that? No.
Yeah, I know.
It's just
Like,
you hit that thin air and it's just so underpowered.
It would be interesting. I'd like to see what a big quad would do out in there. If it would just fumble.
No, it'd probably be good. It'd probably be a lot.
I mean, wind might affect it a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like, because that's the only problem, especially when you're on like a face. Sometimes you'll get a shear,
right?
And that shit'll fuck. It's weird because you can't hear the motors. You're not as connected to what's going on. You know what I mean?
Well, you wear the earbud.
Yeah, that's when you need that shit.
Well, I got 3 of them.
I mean, I've got them, but
earbuds when I go flying.
I used to like rock it for a while, but then I started trying to like put 2 earbuds in and just like go full music.
Yeah.
And then just stopped kind of because I like the sound of the motors, but for whatever reason I didn't have it out in Colorado. I should have though.
You know what, Vince? I was well, you change the playlist every week, but I was like, it'd be kind of cool actually if we could. Maybe we should make another. Maybe I should copy the playlist. I don't know. We need to talk. I was just gonna be dope to leave the playlist somewhere every week that we could have a copy for people to check out if they want.
I can make a new one each week. So that's not a big deal.
Next up is Stoner Trash.
Be right back.
I swear these bitches do the most. I can't fuck with shorty, no. I've been trapping on my own. Couple bands for the road.
I've been on my rock star shit. What the fuck? Bitch, get the fuck off my dick. I just want the guap, fuck a bitch. Pull up on my rock star shit.
Well, bitch, I'm on my shit. Ayy, get him jumping. He might take my life cause I turn nothing into something. Motherfucker brought it nice, so all my brothers got the stomping. Had to plug for Mexico, call me cause he my cousin. Ay.
Bitch, don't give me fuck, dog. I'm dropping by, boy, you better don't go. Bitch, don't give me fuck, dog. I can show you where we stay and where we from.
I swear these bitches do the most. I can't fuck with shorty, no. I've been trapping on my own. Couple bands for the road.
I've been on my rock star shit. What the fuck? Bitch, get the fuck off my dick. I just want the guap, fuck a bitch. Pull up on my rock star shit. What the fuck?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Another one fucking putting in work.
Absolutely. Threading the needle on that power loop.
Yeah, no shit, right?
That shit was dope.
No shit. Next up is Killer Bee. Killer Bee.
That one.
I can swallow a bottle of alcohol in her. Feel like Godzilla. Better hit the deck like the Cardilla. My whole squad's in here walking around the party. A cross between a zombie apocalypse and Bobby. Brain healing, which is probably the same reason I wrestle with mania shades. In this bitch, I'm posse up. Consider it to cost me a costly mistake if they sleeping on me. The hoes better get insomnia. ADHD, high cut. Pass the kabasi. In AA with an AK melee, finna set it like a play date, better vacate, retreat like a vacate Mayday. This beat is cray cray Ray J H A H A H A. Laughing all the way to the bank, I spray flames, they cannot tame a placate.
That's such a fun spot.
I'm normal during the day, but at night turn to a monster. When the moon shines like ice road truckers.
Got a bit of wash there.
Told him Nick the balls had him just appalled. Did so many things that pissed him off. It's impossible to list them adult voices whisper. My fist is ball back up against the wall, pencil drawn. This is just a song to go ballistic on. You just pull a pistol on the guy with a missile launcher. I'm just a Loch Ness, the mythological. Quick to tell a bitch you off like a fifth of vodka. When you twist the top of the bottle, I'm a
monster. You get in my way, I'ma feed you to the monster. I'm normal during the day, but at night turn to a monster. When the moon shines like ice road trucker, I look like a villain out of those blockbusters. Godzilla, fire spitter, monster. Blood on the dance floor, Louis V carpet. Fire, Godzilla, fire, monster. Blood on the dance floor, Louis V.
If you never gave a damn, raise your hand, cause I'm about to set trip. Vacation
There's a dope gap between those tracks. Right in front of them.
Prostate exam. How can I have all these fans that perspire like a liar's pants? I'm on fire and I got no plans to retire. And I'm still the man you admire. These chicks are spazzing out. I only get more handsome and flyer. I got them passing out like what you do when you hand someone flyers. And what goes around comes around just like the blades on the chainsaw. Cause I caught the flag, but my dollar's stacked right off the bat like a baseball. Like kidding, bitch, I got them racks with so much ease that they call me Diddy. Cause I make bands and I call getting cheese a cakewalk.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Holy fucks. Jesus Christ. Oh, so loud.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
What was that?
That playlist, though.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm telling you, like we talked about this last week. Like I turned off auto fucking play, and it just so the playlist does it anyways. It doesn't give a fuck. Playlist does not give a fuck. This is Verjan. Verjan.
This came out while we were live, so I added this live, I believe.
Good man.
Oh, nice. Oh wait, this is Virgins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got the extra S at the end there, Chad?
Virgins? Yes.
Virgins.
Virgins.
Yeah, it's chillers.
I want to say something, but
Nope.
this is so pretty.
It is, man. It's ridiculous. He just knows what looks good and has good scenery, man. Holy shit.
Dude, John's got the eye, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's
And he's a hiker too. He goes for those missing quads.
Fuck yeah, man. Fire.
always some heat.
Oh,
so good.
hey, that's Zorro. Is he part of this playlist? Is Zorro part of this playlist?
I put Zorro's.
I got excited. I thought he was jumping in.
He's talking about Johnny Lutz.
This is the last video.
I'm gonna cut off his. I have one more video to play past this. I'm gonna cut off his conversation.
Yeah, I just put that at the. I put Virgins and Zorro's at the end because they both went.
I have one that was just released that I definitely want to play because he doesn't get enough play. Period. All right. Right. Love you, Zorro.
It's me.
This.
This Primitives video?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
You gave it to me. It said, is it Zorro's? What?
Is this Zorro's video?
Yeah, it's the same clip.
I don't.
It's the same clip, bro. I just skipped over Zorro talking.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
I knew it
this
was
him
the
with the
same
3D
spot.
camera?
So I don't know. No, this is not.
Either Zorro just upped his style game.
Dude,
I don't know whose fucking foot is this.
I don't think this.
Well,
is
this is the best thing I've ever seen him do.
Yeah.
No, this is Zorro because he was talking about flying behind that barrel.
Bro. Bravo, brother.
Primitive with different music.
This is dope, man.
Whatever it is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been kicking up his game.
Maybe the talking part is like, this is not me flying. Maybe telling us some important information.
That's sick, man. Killer spot too.
I don't think this is Ian flying.
No, I don't think so. I don't think this is Ian.
No, because he's not going 1,000,000 fucking miles an hour.
Real nice though.
I don't want to have to watch the first 2 minutes of the video to understand what happened. I'll watch it later.
Yeah, I'll watch it
We'll let
later.
you know.
We'll tune in next week to find out if it was Zorro or not. Or watch the video. It is your choice. Give him a thumbs up regardless.
I don't. No, this isn't Ian or Zorro. What the fuck spot is that?
Oh, these are him with Johnny Lux.
It's not. Well, no, it's not.
No, this is what happens when Zorro uses Johnny Lux.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's the joke.
back?
I just got it.
Oh, must have been Ian. Okay. Oh.
Oh, so that was the video that Zorro edited for Ian.
Is that what it is?
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. Because remember, he was saying that like he wanted to fly that little lake.
There's so
but
much confusion right
security
now.
showed up.
Who's fucking video? We're gonna watch the video. Put the link. Put the link of the video in here. I'll do it. Everybody watch the video.
I just sent it.
Figure out it on your own time, because we're getting late.
Ian's
We're
channel
so
in
late.
the
He's gonna watch this and fucking spit
Like, what the
anything
fuck?
he was drinking.
What the fuck is going on? I don't know anymore.
They're in a different Zoom. It's fine. This is what it's like when Zooms collide.
I hadn't thought of that fucking song in so long. That was hilarious.
Nobody has actually until I did.
So super sick pilot and a huge Emuflight supporter, and one of Kevin's #1 testers is Phil, and he's steady killing it. And I'll tell you, he's probably one of the best flatland pilots I've ever seen. I mean, I've never seen anybody make wide open space with no obstacles look so sick. So definitely check him out. Check out his channel.
Yeah, shout out to Ian, man.
And
killer pilot. Killer dude.
Here we go. This is Phil Thrills.
It was off in Colorado, if I remember correctly.
Oh no shit.
Colorado's really dark out there.
Oh yeah.
Damn.
That was
He's
dope.
low right there. Shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's impressive what he does on.
Yeah, flat land.
Hella flat. Hella flat.
He's flying in the spot that a grader just went over and made flat.
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah. I gotta work on this stuff, but not over concrete.
Nah, just do it over concrete. You'll get better faster.
Or broke.
Or get broke.
Yeah,
get broke.
Or broke.
Thanks.
One limit or the other will
Thanks,
come.
Abby.
It'll be all good. Maybe that's why I'm so bad at this hobby. Just keep going broke and can't replace it.
I'll post a 20-second flight edit for you.
Does he have wheels on it? What the hell?
Oh, that was sick.
Oh, it's weird. I can't fly like this that close to the ground, but I can fly like that over ice, which is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Just slide longer.
Yeah. Big
like not
love
like
doing
that,
that.
not that good.
Big shout out to Phil.
Yeah, I don't look that good, but I could do it.
Nice one, Phil.
You sell,
I'm just talking
Yeah,
about
it's-
flying close.
if you say Phil's last name fast, it sounds like bacon. There's a running baking joke in there. Fucking awesome pilot and awesome person. And I'm gonna drop his link in the chat. Y'all should give him a like. He just actually dropped that video an hour ago, looks like.
Right on.
Give him a like, drop him a sub. Fire pilot. Definitely, yeah. Keep an eye on him.
Doing it now.
I'm out of shit. I haven't looked at the Discord, but we're way late, so we should. I think it's that time.
Let's do that
we'll
thing.
end
Let's
on a high
close this
note.
beast.
Yeah, Kevin. Unless you have something, you have any video of yours you want to play, or are you good?
Hey, how about estimates on
Yeah, that was the last one.
0.3.0?
Estimates, yeah. We've got the original coder that wrote the presets code. He's got work off tomorrow and Monday, so he's hoping to finish all that off. So whenever he gets that finished, we're good to send it out. As
Roll it
public.
out.
So
safe
Sweet.
bet. Hopefully within a week.
yeah, weeks kind of worst case. Better could be sooner, but
Between now and a week, guys, that's what we're looking at.
Get ready, everybody.
That's what we'll call it.
Clear out your Flight 1 controllers. Remap that shit the proper way.
you know, we support Kiss V2 as well.
Oh
so-
yeah, already.
Blasphemy.
It's like I wouldn't go that far.
Why fuck with
Let's not get
perfection?
crazy now.
I might fuck with one of them.
I've never.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, I'm just curious to see.
If you don't like it,
I
you
am
can
too.
always-
Honestly, yeah. I want to know if the hardware makes a difference and if it's
Right.
really different.
Rate dynamics.
That'd
is
be
pretty
interesting
cool.
to find out. Actually, already.
Yeah, yeah, it would be.
Actually, will it support 2400?
The nerd in me supports this idea.
It
2400.
only support D-Shot 1200. Later we might think about adding D-Shot 2400, but
You should make that happen.
right now I've just had so many other priorities.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
coding stuff
Absolutely.
that
Yeah,
I'm
no
not
one's
worried
gonna
about that
further
shit.
down.
Yeah.
It's-
For the,
1200, 2400.
as much as I'm not like, I don't have any intention to buy DJI or any of that. There's a lot of DJI people out there that are definitely looking for support, and I'm as a Crossfire guy, I do want the widget. So like there are definitely things that I don't know if those are priorities, but I would like to say I'd like to see them sooner than later as well.
Just Chad's 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to, I deal with a lot of the feedback from everybody. So just kind of like, those are two big things that I get hit with constantly. DJI stuff and Crossfire LQ.
Probably also RPM filter questions.
The RPM stuff is, not so
It's
much.
dying down.
Honestly,
It's
I don't
dying
It's
down.
dying down. Yeah.
People are understanding that.
All the time it used to be like, how do I enable RPM filters? And it's like,
Nope, not here, buddy.
wrong firmware.
Yeah.
Never heard of her.
Yeah. Who's that bitch? Sounds like a dumbass. I don't like her. She fucking sucks.
I do that. I've said it 100 times. I think the RPM filter is well done. It does a really good job at the way they did it. There's
It just didn't work for my 7-inch, and the Emuflight did.
there's definitely, well, the question again, like I said, is I don't know if it's absolutely necessary in situations. I mean, the ultimate idea really is to use as little filtering necessary as possible, but have the options to fix your problem when the standard things don't work. You know, you might have, like I said, I have a low spike around 50 on one of my builds right now. I don't want to drop my LPFs down that low necessarily, when I could maybe just put a notch there, or worst case, I could use a dynamic notch, you know, and, you know,
or a matrix.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, it's the matrix in our case now, but yeah, I mean, you know, everything has its cause and effect. Everything has balance. You know, you use these things, you're gonna use more CPU. Yeah. Do you want to, you know, again, one of the things I have always embraced is the versatility on this platform. You know, some people love 1632K. Some people like 4K. You know what? You can do both and be completely happy, you know.
I run 1K.
Or you could run 1K, I reckon, if you wanted to. Crazy people, but
yes, buddy.
But actually, but
that's like that's the big thing too. Is I think that like tuning has become its own separate.
Well,
hobby, and Emuflight isn't like, it's tuning and flying. It's not tuning being its own hobby, and that's what I like about it.
No, it definitely doesn't. It definitely doesn't have to be, but the options are there for you to get where you need to be. You know?
Well, I think it's a great tool, and if it's used properly and learned properly, like I like to think of it like I keep it as basic as possible until what you got.
Well, I was just going to backtrack to the whole 1K thing, because what did Alexander actually say? Because they run 1K, but they sample higher. I think they sample at 8, so it's like 8.1 or something. So
yeah, something like that.
Wanted to clarify that little thing, because I asked him on the fucking stream just specifically to find out.
I don't hold on to that kind of shit. If it just flies well,
it's good info. It's good info.
It is.
I think it's 8.1. I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the stream now. But yeah,
that's what I've been told. So
yeah.
Oh, cool, awesome. 8.1. That's what I run. 8.1 for the
We've
win.
had a lot of theoretical and nerd theory conversations about sampling frequency versus what you're sampling, blah 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 blah. And it is interesting. And some people are running like 16.1 or something crazy. I think, I don't know. So I don't know. Is that, or is it 8.1? I don't know. Tent was running 1K, and I thought he told me he was running 16.1 or something. Does that sound right, Kev?
Could be. I don't know.
A couple of those guys have been playing around with it.
I've heard of some guys doing 16.1, but I can't remember who specifically. But
I don't know if Tent's still in the chat, but yeah, some of those guys were, because they were told me. I'm like, oh, interesting, and they seem to be digging it. So hey, that's cool.
I mean, give it a try, see if you like it.
You
never know.
Never know until you try.
Yeah.
So
get your dick wet.
So like, you know, make sure you subscribe to the Emuflight channel. There will be a Emu chat coming near release. So drop that notification bell thingy on the Emuflight channel. The link is in the description. Right. So love you guys. Yeah. Anything else?
No, man. Thanks everybody for coming out and hanging out this long.
Thank you for staying this whole time, Kev. I didn't expect us to go this long again, but these quarantine streams just have a life of their own. I'm just telling you right now.
Let's be real; they've always just had a life of their own.
But we never went quite this. Once, I think, in the past. It's fucking almost 2 a.m.
Already?
Yeah, it's almost 4 hours. Yeah, we are champions. We do it for you. I hope you guys were fucking learned something or entertained or mildly disappointed. I don't know.
Yeah. All of the above.
All of the above. We love you. Thank you so much for each and every time. And yeah.
Wash your hands.
Wash your stuff.
Wash your hands. Stay safe.
I'm gonna leave you with this amazing video.
Emus.
Bye.
Bye.
2 minutes to me.
Anybody seen that new season, by the way?
What?
What is it? Big Mouth or
no?
I've seen Big Mouth.
Dude, I'm running on fumes. Like
We're still live.
I was that. Oh. just gonna bang my neck against the ground.
Fuck it. I don't know what to do.
What are they doing?
Everybody, what do we do? Hey, I think we should bang our necks against the fucking ground.
That'll fucking scare him. This music makes me want to take another ayahuasca journey.
I'd like to watch that if you're just gonna like pound your throat against the ground.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, if that's what happens, then I'm totally down.
Sword of omens, give me sight beyond sight.